And good evening and welcome to Radio One's coverage of the 2020 elections. For the next 4 hours, you'll hear from a couple of top lawyers, political analysts, reporters, talk show hosts, attorneys as we analyze the Black vote. It's election night 2020, and you can join us by calling 800-450-7876. So let me introduce you to some of the guests. First of all, forgot to say my name. I'm Carl Nelson from Radio One in Washington, D.C., and our first set of guests coming up, we have attorney Valerie Hicks-Poe-Hale. Valerie,
Hi.
welcome.
Hi, how are you? Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
And join us on the line from the University of Houston, we have Dr. Gerald Horne. Dr. Horne.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Present. We'll mark him present. And then the talk show host, Dr. John Arnold. Dr. Arnold. Oh, Dr. Arnold with a mask. Dr. Arnold, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. And the Director of Communications from Bowie State University, Dr. Otis Thomas. Hey, Dr. Thomas.
Interesting group. Thank you.
Yes, team group. We're going to ask you first your thoughts on what's going on today. Let's start ladies first. Attorney Valerie Hicks-Poe-Hale. Valerie, your assessment of what's going on today.
And I'm having difficulty hearing you. There's some noise in the background. Can you repeat that?
I was asking about your assessment of what's going on today, because everyone's saying it's historic. How do you read it?
Oh, I definitely read it as historic. We've not seen numbers in this country of African Americans voting for someone to make a change at this level since I've been alive. We had 2008, President Obama, we came out in large numbers, but that was a different kind of feeling. That was for change going forward. We're trying to change to get something from around our throats right now. So it's historic.
All right. And speaking about history, Dr. Gerald Horne is the head of the History Department and the African American Studies Department at the University of Houston. So, Dr. Horne, history professor, how do you read it?
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, the numbers are just off the charts. Here in Texas, for example, there's been historic turnout, which may help to turn this routinely and traditionally red state purple or even blue. There is a distinct possibility that Mr. Trump will not prevail in Texas, which is something that hardly have been imagined about a year ago. And given that, it's indicative of what could be a sweeping change in the United States of America. But let's not count our chickens before they're hatched.
Interesting. We'll get back to Texas and what's going on down there, especially in Houston, where you're located. But let's go to Dr. Otis Thomas. He's Director of Communications at Bowie State University. Dr. Thomas, your thoughts?
Let me just say, from a qualitative standpoint, we're dealing with a paradigm shift, a weather change that has never, ever existed in the history of this country. In addition to that, you're seeing a huge onslaught of students, these young people realizing that change is mandatory, not just in the word alone, but in the action and necessity to be able to advance that knowledge to such a level that we'll be able to feel that pinch in our communities, in our society, in our universities, in our educational system. If we do not feel that spirit, it will roll this country back to such a level we may not have the shovels to dig our way out of it. So it is mandatory that we all hold hands, such as Lincoln, Martin Luther King, and Obama had tried to pull, as he said, the car up out of the mud, clean it off, but I want the keys. We must maintain the keys and the goal to go forward so that we have a change in our world, for our peoples, for our children, for our families, and for our society, sir.
Yeah, we're going to get to the students, the young people as well. But Dr. John Arnold, your thoughts?
Well, I'm amazed at how people are supporting Donald Trump, even after all that we've seen these past 4 years. I mean, it just blows me away. How, why do they support him? I don't understand it. He's insulted everybody. He acts like he's in some kind of gang. The presidency is about him, not about the American people. It's not about a dream. It's not about bringing people together. With him, it's about dividing people. I think he won on a fluke in the first place. I think many people voted for him because Barack Obama had won earlier. He showed himself to be a racist, a birther. The Central Five in New York. I mean, and he's blown it with the virus. Now,
that's a thing in indictment, and we get back to some of those issues in a moment. But I want to go to Attorney Valerie. Attorney Valerie, you heard what he said. He's blowing his mind. A lot of black people feel the same way about all the blacks that are supporting Trump. One of Trump's assistants says he expects up to 30% of the black vote. We saw some of our young rappers, hip hoppers openly endorse Donald Trump. Did that surprise you?
It surprised me. And after I thought about it, I realized I had to think, why would someone who looks like us be open to voting for someone who is so openly racist? And, Chokwe Lumumba, who was the first African-American mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, who was not mainstream anyway, he would always say, if you'll love the people or you will defy the people. He also said that with respect to hatred, that there are some people who they hate others as much or more than they hate or than they love their own interest. And I think the rappers have gotten a little bit confused with that. They don't understand that when you do things, when we're supposed to look at loving this country and taking the country back by any means necessary, that means by ours as well. It's not violent. It doesn't mean that by any means necessary, which is one of the Chokwe's favorite quotes, by any means necessary. It doesn't mean violence. It means even by any means necessary for us. Even if I have to give up something in order to progress the rest of my people. And so they have demonstrated to you that they love money more than they love or more than they hate what this man is doing to the rest of society. Those people who can't afford to live where they live or to be in their tax bracket. And so by any means necessary means we need to look at that on us as well, not just at other people, what they need to give up, but what we're willing to give up.
Yeah, that's interesting. Dr. Horn's on the phone with us. Dr. Horn, you heard what Attorney Valerie just said. Some of the rappers are blaming people like me and you and the rest of us on this panel that we didn't do a good job. We let them down. And they're basically saying it's our fault why we have a Donald Trump and why we're supporting Donald Trump. They even go to the extent that, I've heard many of them say, well, Barack Obama didn't do anything for you. Your thoughts, Dr. Horn?
Well, first of all, I don't think we should be surprised that these multimillionaire entertainers who've made small fortunes by performing on stage as rebels have decided to pursue their class interests and support the man who they think will cut their taxes. As a matter of fact, that's what 50 Cent said. He thought that if Trump loses, he might have to change his name to 20 Cent because of having to pay more taxes. So I don't think we should be surprised by that. At the same time, I think that this idea that 30% of the black community will vote for Trump is delusional. I mean, I don't think that we should see these multimillionaire rappers as somehow a cross-section of the larger black community. And in fact, it feeds into another delusional conversation, which is somehow saying that black men in particular are more susceptible to voting for Trump. That's like saying, if you look at Condoleezza Rice and Jackie Lacey, the black woman DA of Los Angeles who refuses to prosecute killer cops, and then try to blow that up to say that black women are turning to the right. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. It's throwing dust in the eyes of the population, and it's hardly worth our time.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Jackie Lacey too. She's the DA in LA, refusing to prosecute police officers there, and she's locked in a tight battle with George Gascon. We're going to get to her later, but I want to go to Dr. Thomas. Dr. Thomas, these rappers, these hip hop stars, as Dr. Horn mentioned, millionaires, many of them, and they say they're supporting Trump because they're in that tax bracket. Do they have influence? Are some of their followers going to support them? Do you think they can bring some of their followers to the goal to go out some, Dr. Thomas?
Yeah, and John, can you? I think you got your check, and you can. Okay, great. Let me answer that. Let's look at history. If you recall, Sammy Davis Jr. gripped the arm of Nixon and leaned his shoulders against Nixon and cuddled him. And Nixon had on this bright blue suit and saying, "This is a good man." And it really distorted the world. It was shocking to the African-American community that why would this celebrity do such a thing against this entity that was basically against all the principles of Martin Luther King during that time. Let's change the history of and the march of time. We're dealing with a machine called transhumanism. Transhumanism and this phenomena is the social media. It wasn't around a few 10, 15 years ago. And it is so potent and so powerful that you're able to do things that are unimaginable. Donald Trump is a temporary phenomena, an entertainer, a businessman, a tax cheater, all these things they say about he's just temporary. But historically speaking, our kids are rising above. You will always have a percentage on that social media vein that will follow that same trail towards him because he is a cult figure. That's what I like to put on the table as conversation. He's a cult figure, and cult figures have a strong following. It's nothing to do with this. He's not presidential. He probably doesn't even want to be the president anymore. He'd rather get back to Park Avenue and eating caviar in Florida in his mansion and playing golf to the end of his time. Yeah. But now he's in it. You're in it now, and now you've got to deal with it. I feel very confident that with this stronger following and that we have these ignorance, stupidity, lack of interpersonal communication skills, because money does something to you psychologically. It gives you false confidence. And you always think so long as you can, my father said, when you get up out of bed, son, you can always make money. But people who have a gluttony of money, it does something to them spiritually, intellectually, academically, and it changes their shift in this world. So this handful of hip hop artists are only temporary. They're irritating, but they do not and cannot change the course of history, sir.
Wow. Dr. Arnold, that's a scathing indictment right there. Dr. Arnold, Kanye said he voted today, actually. He voted for himself. It's the first time he's ever voting. And I just read somewhere that a cop in LA voted for LAPD, voted for Kanye. Does he understand how the electoral process works, that he just gave away his vote? Do you think people who followed Kanye, like the LAPD cop, who followed Kanye and voted for him, you think there's going to be a significant amount?
You were kind of distorted there, the last part of your question, but if you are asking me if Kanye understands the political capital of his vote,
yeah,
and the political capital that he carries, no, he doesn't understand. About 20 years ago, I ran for city council in my hometown. After doing radio and TV in Detroit for 30 or 40 years. And I just knew that was going to translate over into votes. And it didn't. Just because Kanye is a good entertainer doesn't translate into Kanye being a good politician. Just like Trump may have been a good entertainer, we see, it's obvious to everyone with good sense, I would imagine, that he's not a good president. He's not presidential. No, I don't think Kanye understands the value of his political capital at all.
All right. Attorney Barry, I got to ask you this because it's mostly the male rappers and hip hop stars who are clinging to Donald Trump. We've got a bevy of female hip hop stars, but they're not supporting Donald Trump. What's going on here?
They didn't drink the Kool-Aid. They just didn't drink the Kool-Aid. They didn't. Those male hip hop stars, and all joking aside, it's what we were saying earlier. They are so attached to the money that they can't see the necessity that they may have to put their interest aside for the betterment of whole society. Sisters have always been nurturing. Sisters understand the need to take care of not just yourself, but others. If you have children, if any of us who have children, if you're my age and over, if you're 50 and over, this election goes more to our kids and our grandkids than it does to us. And I think they understand that. And I just think we've missed something, in that generational carrying forward the message or the need for society. I think we've missed something with some of our young men that we could not afford to miss with young women, because they are there daily taking care of what needs to be done in addition to taking care of themselves.
Right. Folks, if you just joined us, it's election night 2020 on Radio 1. We have a bevy of guests coming up, and we're discussing the elections, the votes as they come in. We'll let you know about some of the reports that they come in as well. But right now, I want to go to Houston for Dr. Gerald Horne. Dr. Gerald Horne, is this a generational issue with these hip hop and rappers? Because it seems like it's the younger end and the older hip hop folks, you don't see them gravitating to Donald Trump. Is it a generational issue? And Juan, that's the first question. And is it some sort of intellectual? Because Donald Trump's base are mostly high school dropouts or high school diplomas, just people with high school diplomas. At the risk of sounding elitist, is that the same issue with these black folks who support Donald Trump? Are they at that intellectual level?
Well, I think you have a point. I mean, certainly they're not keeping up with the news. Certainly they're not keeping up with events. But I should also say, with regard to your previous question, that I can't think of any female hip hop artists who were backing Trump. But certainly, if you look at Candace Owens, if you look at Diamond and Silk, there are a number of black women who too are supporting Mr. Trump as well. So once again, I see this as a matter of class interest with regard to these multi-millionaire rappers like Lil Wayne and 50 Cent. And I also see it in terms of backward ideology. And backward ideology is usually a product of ignorance. And that cuts across gender, and it cuts across many different lines.
Wow. Dr. Thomas, how do you see it?
You got to remember that we're colleagues, we're dealing with entertainment. And entertainment has a very strong pull in different directions. But as I said earlier, it's just a handful of these very wealthy entertainers that are thinking my bank account may be drained. But here's something I ask my students, colleagues, this will blow your mind. When I was advising students this morning, I said, what is your response to Lil Wayne? Because Lil Wayne visited our university at one time. I said, what do you respond? They all know him. He's worth, one of my students, he's worth $150 million. I don't know what his bank account is like. However, with that said, but the response said, he is a cop-out. He is a person that we don't trust anymore. They're damaging their career in hopes of trying to save the bottom line by allowing themselves to stand up front and hold hands basically with our enemy that is crushing our family values and as I said earlier, rolling us back into a state that we may not be able to get out of unless this phenomena changes today. So once again, the social media page plays a very serious game, and not in our generation and their generation, because they're able to communicate with each other immediately and on a whole different level that we can truly understand. That's really where it's going with this machine. This machine is great, but it's contaminated with complications.
All right, interesting. Dr. Arnold, did we drop the ball? Are we going to see the next election cycle that more and more hip hoppers and rappers are going to be supporting a quote unquote a Donald Trump type of candidate?
I hope not. I truly hope not. These young folks that are around now have a couple of basic problems, meaning that they don't understand, many of them don't understand their history. Lil Wayne and 50 Cent, they are so removed from what it is that we went through, or I presume, but Valerie Hicks looks like she's pretty young there. She might not know what I'm talking about. But I mean,
No.
many of them don't know and can't relate to. You know, they can't relate. They don't know about the battle between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, where, you know, people had to pick a side. Dr. King was the safe one. Malcolm X was the dangerous one. You know, I hear students talking all the time about, well, if I were a slave, I wouldn't do it. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. They wouldn't keep me in slavery for 300 years. I mean, that's actually the way they think. They think that we dropped the ball. They don't understand busing, murder, stress. I don't know if you all know about stress in Detroit, where that was the police department's. The police department was using this detail to look for young black men and shoot them and kill them, and they were planting knives and guns on these young men. You know, that's one of the reasons why Mayor Young was the mayor for so long, is because so many people were happy that he dismantled stress so that we could live our lives. Some of these young people don't understand that. They don't understand the Vietnam War and how we were there first. You know, they don't understand the riots that happened all over the 60s. They just don't understand because nobody's told them.
Yeah, and that would be for us. So, Valerie, did we dropped the ball? Is it our fault? And before you do that, I just got to note here that Mitch McConnell appears to be on his way to being reelected. But anyway, did we drop the ball, Valerie?
Yes, I think we dropped the ball. I think we have been so involved in thinking that we've arrived that we've forgotten to teach our children. And that's something that Jewish people don't do. You know, they don't ever forget. They don't let their children ever forget. And we don't do that enough. And when our children give us pushback, like, oh, Mom, that's over, or oh, Dad, that's over, then we kind of push back and we bow into that. But I think it's incumbent upon each of us now to recognize that we dropped the ball and to reach out and touch some of these young people in this next generation, Generation X, and Generation Z rather, and began to put together programs that will help them, meeting them on their level, to educate them about their history, and not just about the history of slavery, about the history of who we are as kings and queens, that we were not slaves. We didn't come here as slaves. We came here as free people, many of us kings and queens, and we were enslaved once we arrived. And so once they understand who they are, I think we can begin to look at a hope and a future for our young people.
Yeah. Dr. Horn, young people turning out to the polls. Different stories. I heard there was a huge turnout. I heard it wasn't the young people aren't turning out. What have you heard, and what's going on in Texas, especially Houston, where you are?
Well, there's been a long-term issue at Prairie View A&M, which is just outside of Houston, which is a historically black college in Waller County, where students have been foiled repeatedly in trying to register to vote. Now, as you know, in 2013, the U.S. Supreme Court tore the heart out of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But having said that, these students at Prairie View are still struggling to try to register to vote and to cast their votes as well. Given the enormous turnout in this particular election, perhaps the most significant turnout in the history of the United States, or at least the modern United States, I would say that the young people are part of this turnout. Certainly they were part of the turnout in 2018 when the House of Representatives turned into a Democratic stronghold, which we expect it to continue to be in 2020-21.
Yeah, interesting. I want to go to Dr. Thomas. Dr. Thomas, speaking about the young people, earlier in the race, in the primaries, we saw some of the young people were upset because they were behind Bernie, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And kind of like what Valerie just talked about, or was it Valerie, or was it, I think it was Valerie, it might have been John, about Malcolm and Martin and the differences in our homes when we were growing up. Most of our parents were for Martin and youngsters were for Malcolm. These young people in the Democratic Party seem to be for Bernie Sanders. And the last time around with Hillary Clinton, it was Bernie or bust. They didn't show up. You think they're going to show up tonight?
Yeah, let me just say this from what I've seen from the educational environment. Students realize now that we need to make a change. We need to do something immediately, because when they see their parents can't pay when they see a parent making six figures and worried about the lights and the grocery and the basic necessity, they know there's something's wrong. Mm-hmm. There's something that's going on that is frightening. When young people got to stay at home in their 30s and 40s and still with their mothers and fathers, that's not because they want to. There's something wrong with the economy economically. When you graduate from college and you have $100,000 degree that you'd have paid for, but you can't get a job because of the injustices that we deal with and the racism that is now, they get a chance to say some man killed a man, public television, nationally, crushing his neck and staring at the camera boldly. Yeah. And now they realize a young black man gets shot down in Ferguson, broad daylight. They realize, do not underestimate our young people today. They're very bright. They're very aware. They're very in tune. It's only a small percentage, but the rest of them are saying, guess what? I'm getting to the polls to vote. Majority of my students I spoke to just this morning, they were at the polls days ago, because they realize if we don't do something now to stop this phenomena, stop this cult, stop this man, we're going to be bankrupts in America. And we cannot afford to spend all this time to pursue a degree which is excruciating with a nefarious, abasing person like this. They are out in millions. That's why you see those numbers have been fertilized and growing, because our young people realize that we have to do something now if they are going to survive and have jobs in the future.
Interesting. John, I want to find from each one of you, because we heard about the young people turning out, but the overall turnout. Dr. Arnold, what was it like for you in Detroit? I tell you what, hang on. I hear the drama. Hang on, John. We got to take a short break here. Folks, you're listening to Election Night 2020 on Radio 1. We're going to take a short break. We come back. You want to join us, just hook us up at 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls after this short break.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL. Listen to News Talk 1450 WOL on Alexa. Just enable Alexa first. Say, Alexa, enable 1450 WOL skill. Then say, Alexa, open 1450 WOL.
This is Carl Nelson from The Carl Nelson Show. Heard weekdays, 4 to 7, Thank you for listening to 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Now you, your friends, and family can enjoy News Talk 1450 anywhere you go. WOL, where information is power.
This is Reality Radio.
The reality is that for far too long, there have been efforts to refocus the now $1.3 trillion annual spending power of the Black consumer market. Over the past several decades, there have been numerous Buy Black campaigns, but still only about 3% of that $1.3 trillion circulates back to the Black community. So let's try it again. Each week, we will identify 3 Black-owned businesses on Tuesday and spend money with them for the week. And then on the next Tuesday, we will identify 3 more in our local communities. The businesses for this week are
Excellent Carpet Cleaning. Health, appearance, and preservation is the standard, making a difference one client at a time. Visit excellentcarpetcleaning.net. Bishop & Bishop Dental, your family-friendly dental practice delivering the best in general and cosmetic dentistry. Conveniently located in downtown Silver Spring. Visit bishopdental.com. Dina's Delights is a plant-based dessert company that makes delicious desserts with healthier ingredients, peanut and dairy-free, no white sugar and high fructose with great taste. Visit dinasdelights.com.
This is Reality Radio with Kathy Hughes. What's your reality?
In this one small world, we share together.
There are lots of good things we can still share.
We can share hope.
We can share laughter. We can share encouragement.
We can share inspiration.
We can share unity.
We can share healing.
We can share joy.
We can share love.
We can share truth.
So during these times, we can't forget.
We can beat this together.
Because together, we are one.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. Our guest, we have attorney Valerie Hicks Hale. We also have from the University of Houston, he's on the line, he's Dr. Gerald Horn, and talk show host, Dr. John Arnold. And we also have Director of Communication from Bowie State University, Dr. Otis Thomas. We've got some reports coming in on the election. We're talking about the election. Donald Trump is ahead with the states, I guess the votes, 42 to 30. Biden has won Delaware, D.C., Maryland, Massachusetts, and Virginia. Trump has taken Tennessee, Indiana, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. So that's the very latest. Before we left, we were trying to figure out what's the turnout been in your community. So we're going to Dr. Arnold to get what's going on in Detroit, in Michigan. Dr. Arnold.
Projections were that Detroit was only going to have a 50% voter turnout, and I just thought that was awful. I went back to see what happened with President Obama. It was we had 51% in 2008 and 53% in 2012. So I guess that's about par for the course. You know, when I hear people talking about voter fraud and what's going to happen with some ballots, I'm thinking to myself, I don't see anybody knocking down the door to vote. I don't see anybody, really knocking down the door to vote. Out of everything that's on the line now, we have projected 50% of the population in Detroit is going to vote. And Detroit is 88% black. Wow. I mean, I don't know what you say.
Well, what do they say they're not voting? Do they have an excuse? They don't care, or they don't like the candidates? What's the excuse?
I think it's not saying ignorant in a ugly way. There's my. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah. Okay. Not saying it in an ugly way, just saying it in the mere way that I think they want to leave. I think some of them have better things to do. They have to get their rest. They have to go to work in the morning. They have to hustle to pay last month's rent, and it's already, into this month. I don't know. Out of all the deaths of our folks over the years and And out of all the struggles that we went through with the Jim Crow laws, even after emancipation, I don't understand it. I couldn't explain it. I don't know.
Well, we got some more folks joining us. First, we're going to go to one of our colleagues in Cleveland from Radio One. He's a legend in Radio One, Lincoln Ware. Hey, Lincoln.
How you doing? It's Cincinnati, not Cleveland.
Cincinnati. Hey, you know when if you're from another part of the country, they're all the same.
I hear you. But I tell you, thanks for having me this evening. I agree. There's so much voter apathy in this town. I just don't understand it myself. Wow. There was not a big, heavy turnout at the polls, but I'm hoping that was because of the absentee ballots, the mail-in ballots, because we did have a large number of absentee ballots. We call them mail-in ballots, but they just didn't see an overflowing number of Black folks at the polls all day. Now, we had early voting for an entire month. People were coming in like you wouldn't believe. They were dropping off their ballots at the drop box. They had one drop box in the county. You could drop your ballots off there. We had to have deputy sheriffs directing traffic. It was so many people dropping their ballots off. But for some reason, the turnout at the polls today was not what we thought it would be.
But you do radio talk show. What are they saying? What are your listeners saying?
Well, you still get the guys, my vote's not going to count. Yeah. They're going to cheat anyway. And then you have to throw in the post office, not getting the mail-in ballots in on time. Everything, they want to use everything as an excuse why they shouldn't vote. Not why they should, but why they shouldn't.
Right. Well, we got another correspondent or reporter with us from Florida, Jaja Buen. Jaja Buen, welcome to Election Night 2020.
Oh, it's an exciting night indeed, Carl. Exciting. Yeah. I hear it not only in the voices, but also in the cries of our brothers and sisters all around. They're crying. I hear them.
Yeah.
And the reason they're crying is not because they didn't come out.
You're in the key state.
I don't want to hear that excuse.
Right. Tell us what's going on in Florida.
I'll tell you what. Florida is hot. And Florida was hot for quite some time. I haven't seen the kind of political activity in Florida since I've been here in over 27 years. And I've got to tell you, everybody comes out. Think back to when the brother ran for governor here in Florida a couple years back. Everybody and their mother came out to vote, and he still lost. Mm-hmm. And you say to yourself, well, what do we have to do to win Florida? It doesn't seem like Florida will ever turn blue, as the Democrats are hoping. Florida, although Biden supposedly is ahead in the polls, there's always a suspicion that Florida is going to somehow end up being a red state. Always. So we saw it during the famous Gore Bush debacle, when folks were counting chads and doing all kinds of craziness on television. I think Florida is going to be key once again. And although we woke up this morning, I think already there were 900,000 votes, some ridiculous amount. Well, no, I don't want to say 900,000, 9 million votes already in Florida. Think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask one question about
go ahead. Hang on a second, John. Lincoln's got a question for you.
Is it about the Latino vote? Is that why we can't seem to get Florida, because they're just too conservative, or what?
No, you know what it is? I'll be honest with you. I think we need to wake up to the fact that we just have conservative Black people. There are Blacks who will never vote with the Democrats, and there's going to be an issue that's always going to come up, and it's going to be abortion. That's a major issue. It's going to be the fact that many Blacks feel used and abused, and rightly so, by Democrats, because they've always been, the so-called progressives have always experimented with Blacks, and we don't seem to understand. Liberals do experimentation with Black people. Think about it. You know, let's call a spade a spade. I mean, as much as I love my Obama, and I love Michelle Obama, I won't say I love her husband, but I love Michelle. But there are signs that, you know what, you could do whatever you want with us, and we'll just turn the other cheek, and we'll be meek about it, and we'll be weak about it. And in fact, I haven't seen Black people stand up for themselves in the last, say, 8 years since Trump's been in office. And it's a good thing. So I'd like to see it continue. Question is, will it continue if Biden wins office? Will we then go back to our meek existence? Will, you know, the Black Lives Matter no longer matter? Will, you know, all these, you know, fight for equality that we're doing right now no longer be a case because we feel comfortable with a Black woman who will then be vice president? And then when we think about it, that Black woman was responsible for jailing so many of us, so many people who look like us. Did she have any mercy then? And will she have mercy now?
Yeah.
So I don't know who she is and who she likes, but I know who she's sleeping with every night.
Right.
And they don't look like you or me.
Right. Judge,
tell me who she's about.
Attorney Valerie is going to leave us. Before we go there, Val, tell us about the turnout in your area. What do you think about the turnout? You heard what Joshua Bryan said about Florida. You heard what Lincoln talked about, what's going on in Cleveland. And we're going to get to Dr. Horn and see what's happening in Houston.
Yeah, we had despite the fact that we had a lot of early turnout for it's not really considered early voting, it's considered absentee voting here with very long lines. We did, when the polls opened this morning, there were some polls that had lines that were 3 miles long. I actually stood in line an hour and 3 minutes. There were some others at some other polling places. After I voted, I went to other polling places. There were people who were standing in line over 2 hours. So we had quite initially there was a burst of energy, everyone coming out. Now I don't know if everybody voted that morning, because in the afternoon, as I continued to go to the various polling places, you could just walk in. There weren't any lines. But this morning, there were just huge, phenomenally long lines.
All right. Thanks, Valerie. And thanks for sharing all that information with us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Dr. Thompson, before we let you go, your thoughts on the turnout?
I would say this, being in Maryland, and this is a political town. This is a town that kind of leads the way. I don't know the stats, but I will share this with you. As my colleague said earlier, the spirit, the enthusiasm, the burst of energy, it's just been percolating in this market. And I really feel very confident that this thing is going to win in our favor as we speak. There is a different feeling at the polls. When I stood in that line, if you remember, I don't know how old some of you are, I'll say this very quickly, but remember how long you wanted to get into a nightclub, or you want to go see Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, and understand that line could be cold, but you didn't feel the chill. You were just glad to be in that line. And I feel that we're not feeling the chill, we feel the excitement, and that this is a chance for us to really make a difference in our world. And I feel very confident that in this market, especially and around the world, that we will see change, and we will see it on a positive level for our communities, for our country, and for our young people. And thank you for having me, everyone.
No, before you go, I got another question for you, because you got an interesting race up there, the senatorial race, Kwesi Mfume. How are people, Black folks, processing that? Because I've heard a lot of stories that neither candidate is really setting on fire.
Is that question for me?
Yeah, that was for you, yeah.
Oh, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was asking about the Mfume race, the Senate race.
Yeah, what's happening is that in this political market, as I said earlier, this political market is just so burning with energy and burning with excitement and necessity, and everyone's following. I mean, everyone I've spoken with, my students, different generations, diversity, the diversity is here. That diversity is in this market, and everyone's saying, I'm out there. I've been out there already. And if that is a sign of success, then we are changing the course of history as we speak. And once again, social media could be the handle of that bat that we need to hit a home run tonight for all of us in this room and for our societies.
All right, Dr. Thomas, thank you. And thank you for sharing those thoughts with us.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Dr. Horn, we heard about the voter suppression in Houston. Is anything changed?
Well, what happened is that some conservatives brought a lawsuit seeking to toss 127,000 votes because they were cast through drive-in. What happened is that they went to state court first, and they did not have standing. In other words, there was no particular injury that they could present to the court that they had suffered. So it's tossed out of state court. Then they went to federal court, and there was a similar result. They're probably going to appeal up the chain, but in any case, they've suffered a setback. And you should also know that there's been some vandalism at the headquarters of the Democratic Party in Houston that has been quite ugly. And you may have seen the video in Texas going towards Austin, where a Trump caravan tried to run a Biden bus off the road. So it's a very serious situation down here below the within the cotton curtain, so to speak.
Lincoln, any suppression out in Cleveland?
Cincinnati? You mean Cincinnati? I don't know what they're doing in Cleveland.
You got me.
But no, they have. I mean, they've done everything except take your hand and walk you to the polls here.
Wow.
I mean, early voting. We had weekend hours, Sunday hours. They enlarged the place where you could vote for early voting. We had hundreds of thousands of people come out and early vote. You could, if you had an absentee ballot or a mail-in ballot, they made it easy for you to just bring it down and not send it through the mail and just drop it in the drop box 24 hours a day. I mean, they've done everything in Ohio. I didn't see any type of suppression going on this election in Ohio. None at all.
So who's staying home? Is it the young people? Is everybody across the board? Who is it?
Like I say, I need to see the numbers of the mail-in ballots. I'm hoping most of the people mail their ballots in. Like I said, the turnout at the polls would you can walk right up and walk right in all day long at the polls. But I'm hoping more people sit their ballots in or either voted early at the Board of Elections. You didn't have to wait until election. You could go and vote at the Board of Elections. And we had long lines for that. It was like almost like a circus atmosphere there. They had music, they had food, and the different parties had tents set up. And you go there, it was just like a circus atmosphere. People were in line voting, so it was a great thing.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Arnold, is that what's playing out in Detroit?
I think we had 200,000. I believe we had 200,000 mail-in ballots. The state had 2 million early voting, but I didn't see any voter suppression. Much vote. I don't remember seeing any voter suppression. I did hear about somebody setting a mailbox on fire. Not the mailbox, but the one where they would return the mail-in ballots, specifically for the mail-in ballots. But that's the only ugly thing I heard about the voting. The rest of it was above board. It was very similar to what was happening in the Queen City, where we almost had a party. Anytime you get 5 or 6 black folks together anyway with a radio, we're going to turn it into some kind of party.
Yeah. Dr. Horn, go ahead.
But I had to mention to you, if I could. Can you imagine if Donald Trump wins this election? Can you imagine the next 4 years? I mean, he has nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. He beat the Mueller investigation. He beat the impeachment. He beat the virus. He has absolutely nothing to lose and everything to steal.
Wow. Dr. Horn, I was going to ask you a different question, but since Dr. Arnold put that question, What's going to happen if he wins? Because he just laid it out.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Horn?
Well, obviously, you'll see more of the same. You'll probably see an escalation of killings by the police. You'll see the pandemic continue to rise. There'll probably be 500,000 deaths by February 2021. You'll continue to see higher unemployment. And because as a result of the pandemic, you've had entire industries that have been shuttered, including hotels, including cruise ships. The airlines are crashing one by one. So obviously it'll be quite disastrous, but there is apparently a constituency for that kind of catastrophe.
Jean Chabouin, you're in Florida. If Biden wins Florida, it's all over. What does Biden need to do? What area should we be watching tonight?
Well, I'm going to give you the grim story, my friend. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Donald Trump is ahead at current with 89% of the vote, 89% of the precincts reporting. Donald Trump has 50.9% of votes. So at 5,430,999 votes. Joe Biden has 48.2% of the vote. That's only with 89. So no one has called the race yet. But remember what I told you. Everybody said Biden was ahead by 3 or 4 points. Mm-hmm. They were happy. They were belated. And somehow we can't seem to, get over that hurdle. That hurdle seems to be insurmountable here in Florida.
Wow.
So that's going to be important for us to figure out what's going on. Now, secondly, the brother asked a very poignant question, and I think we have to ask each of ourselves this. Not now, but next time, let's ask it even earlier. What happens if Trump wins? Now, the question is, if Trump wins, why didn't we think about that before? We constantly throw all our eggs in one basket and hope for the best. And then wonder what happens if the other side wins. We're playing this game in a wrong fashion. It's as if we never listened to Dr. Claude Anderson and all the other sages in our community who tell us it's all about our political interests. We have to play this game in a fashion in which we play to win. Not hope to win, but play to win. So let's figure this out and let's find out what we can do to undo the damage. We may have to turn to Ice Cube as the next leader in our community, because he might be the only black person. He and our brother from what's the other rapper's name? Kanye West.
Kanye, yeah.
The rappers will take over as the black leadership. They seem to be doing a better job than we are, because here's the thing. They're millionaires. Their interest is not necessarily the interest of the everyday black folks. So why should we be surprised that they would say, hey, I like the guy who's going to keep my taxes low, and I like the guy who's going to listen to me and not force me to be, to coon for him in order for me to get at the table. And folks, we have to go back to those days where we got to stop cooning for the Democrats, because those days are over.
All right. I see Lincoln nodding. Lincoln, your thoughts?
Well, you're right about those rappers, and everybody was jumping on Ice Cube's case for, his black agenda, and that he took to Donald Trump, and they were calling him a sellout. But you might be right about that. If Donald Trump is reelected, we need to have our skin in the game some kind of way.
Well, it appears he's on his way to taking Florida. And your state, Ohio, is another key state. Any idea how it's looking?
Ohio is going to be close. I think Biden will take this county, Hamilton County. I think he will take Hamilton County. He might take Cuyahoga County and Franklin County. That's where the three big cities are located. Yeah. But there's a lot of rural area in Ohio. So if we can get a big turnout in the cities, we might do all right. But like I said, there's a huge rural area here in Ohio, and there's a lot of Trumps. But the suburbs, the suburbs that are close to the cities, a lot of them are turning around to Biden. You know, you don't see as many Trump signs where you used to see them in the suburbs. So that may be a good thing also. But I think if Biden wins, it'll be a real close one here in the state of Ohio.
Dr. Horn, can they flip Texas?
It's possible. It's possible. It's not in 2020 and 2022, 2024. Obviously, demographics are against the Republican Party. That is to say, it's the party of whiteness. And that particular sector of the electorate is shrinking rapidly. But as you know, even if it's shrinking rapidly, that does not necessarily mean that they can be defeated, because look at apartheid South Africa. You had a European minority there for decades, and yet they managed to hold on to power. You could be evolving towards a kind of apartheid society, in fact, as opposed to just happenstance, which is what we have now. Right.
Wow, that is absolutely chilling. That just the thought about that, folks. You just joined us. It's election night 2020 on Radio 1. We have Josh Edwin calling from Florida. He's on the phone. We have Dr. Horn. You just heard. He's in Houston, Texas. We have Lincoln Ware. He's in Cleveland. And the ERE, legendary Lincoln Ware, with us. We have Dr. John Arnold is in Detroit. Dr. Arnold, Trump won Michigan by a slender thread. And I hear the drummers want them, so we got to take a short break. When we come back, I want to ask you about the turnout in Michigan next, right here. It's election night 2020 on Radio 1.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
Urban One celebrates the legacy of Helen Jones Woods, a pioneering jazz trombonist with the historic integrated all-female jazz band, the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, during the 1940s. Woods' dedication to helping minority students at the Pineywood School will continue with your support. To donate, log on to give.pineywoods.org. That's give.pineywoods.org. give.pineywoods.org.
This is Reality Radio.
The reality is that for far too long, there have been efforts to refocus the now $1.3 trillion annual spending power of the Black consumer market. Over the past several decades, there have been numerous Buy Black campaigns, but still, only about 3% of that $1.3 trillion circulates back to the Black community. So let's try it again. Each week, we will identify 3 Black-owned businesses on Tuesday and spend money with them for the week. And then on the next Tuesday, we will identify 3 more in our local communities. The businesses for this week are
Excellent Carpet Cleaning. Health, appearance, and preservation is the standard, making a difference one client at a time. Visit excellentcarpetcleaning.net. Bishop & Bishop Dental, your family-friendly dental practice delivering the best in general and cosmetic dentistry. Conveniently located in downtown Silver Spring. Visit bishopdental.com. Dina's Delights is a plant-based dessert company that makes delicious desserts with healthier ingredients. Peanut and dairy-free, no white sugar and high fructose with great taste. Visit dinasdelights.com.
This is Reality Radio with Kathy Hughes. What's your reality?
Now on view at the Barnes in Philadelphia, Elijah Pierce America, featuring over 100 rarely seen works by virtuoso African-American woodcarver Elijah Pierce, who is also a barber, preacher, and storyteller. Don't miss this major retrospective of the self-taught artist's work outside of his home city of Columbus, Ohio in more than 25 years. Advance reservations encouraged. Learn more about new health and safety guidelines at barnesfoundation.org/safe visit and plan your trip today. The Barnes. After a visit, you'll never stop seeing the Barnes.
WOL, Washington, D.C., an Urban One radio station, minority controlled and operated, serving the African American community for over 40 years, and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com.
The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL. Brought to you by the Mind of an Entrepreneur Show, where Wendy Muhammad gives you mental strategies for navigating the world of business and building a Black economy. And 1450 WOL.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
There we go.
All right. We're switching microphones here. That's what I meant. All right. I think we're back on the mic. And let's see. We're about to go to Dr. Arnold. So, Dr. Arnold, tell us about the turnout in.
Looks like New York is calling for Biden.
Oh, New York's calling for Biden. Okay, good.
New York's calling for Biden. It looks like Biden might pick up Pennsylvania too. So if Trump gets Florida, Biden's got Pennsylvania.
Now,
and he's leading in Ohio.
Who's leading in Ohio?
Biden's leading.
Biden.
In Ohio.
Okay.
What you were asking about Detroit? If you understand how Detroit is set up, the state of Michigan is pretty much a red state. Detroit, where the majority of the black people are, is a Democrat. Nancy DeVos is from the other side, on the other side of the state, where you have all these groups. You heard about the governor,
right,
and the people that wanted to attack her, kidnap her, take her out into the middle of Lake Michigan, and leave her there in the middle of the lake at night. That was what the whole kidnapping her thing was about. Well, you remember the people who blew up the Oklahoma City building about 15 years ago?
Right.
McVeigh.
Yeah, Timothy McVeigh and crew. They're from a little place north of Jackson Prison, north of Ann Arbor. There's a lot of folks in these rural areas up south that are crazy. I mean, seriously crazy. You heard about the people who went up to the state capitol with their guns and scared the devil out of the legislators. You did hear about that, right?
Yeah. We all heard about that.
And the same people won the judge's ruling where these same people could go to the polls today with their guns exposed. Wow. So there's a few reasons why, I'm not going to just come down hard on my people, but there's a few reasons why they can use excuses for not heading to the polls or voting by mail or voting at the city clerk's office or voting a month ago. There's a few excuses they can use.
All right, hang on, guys, because we got to make some musical chairs. First, Dr. Horn, before we let you go, how do you see the outcome? Is it too early to call?
Much too early to call. It's going to be a nail biter. You'll be on the air for a few more hours, so your guess is as good as mine.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Horn. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Good luck.
All right. Zsa Zsa Gwen, before we let you go, Florida. What's Florida looking like?
Florida's still looking close. It's a nail biter. Unfortunately, Trump is still ahead. and we're not sure what's going to happen, but he's still up. It's 51.2 to 47.9, and we're looking at over 90% of the precincts. So I'd say in about another hour, the picture is going to be a lot clearer in Florida. But before I go, though, one cautionary tale. Although we have 50 great states in this country, all states are not equal. Folks, let's not play this by the state game. Let's play the electoral vote game. Florida is worth a lot more than any of these other states. But as much as Florida is worth, California is worth even more. So we're looking at California at 55 electoral votes, right? We're looking at Texas at 38 electoral votes, Florida at 29. Some of these other states are only going to talk about 4 or 5 or 10 at most electoral votes. Ohio, as much as we love the great state of Ohio, it's only 16.
18.
So
I thought we had 18.
We have.
I think we
18, is it? Okay, yeah. You guys have gone up. But the reason for the caution is this: you might win the state and lose the war. So we have to win the states that are important to win in the war. So again, think of the top 5 and then go from there.
Well, that's what happened with Hillary.
Mm-hmm. So we keep making the same mistakes over and over again, don't we? We get happy. We like red and blue. We keep worried about which state is going to be what. And they look at it and they go, okay, we're going to play tic-tac-toe. And they're going to figure out which one's more important. So they go after the bigger states with the bigger electoral college votes. They win those. And then it becomes a question of math. Can you catch up from that point? And that's what makes it difficult. Right. So I think we just have to look at this and, start circling the wagons. I mean, we're learning. This is not our game. We didn't make these rules. We're learning the rules as we go along. But as in any game, we know we can excel in it if we take it serious enough. So I want to say, Black folks, if you want to get in the political game, let's get in the game. But let's not worry about whether we lose this one or that one. We're in it for the long haul. Because whether you lose now, you still have to live with them for another 4 years. So we have to figure out how to keep playing along and making sure we stay alive so that we can keep thriving and keep growing. So with that, love my people and love my vote, but we got to make sure we win this one.
All right.
For the long haul.
All right,
brother.
We just got to know here that Biden is taking New Jersey, so it's another win in the win column for Joe Biden, the state of New Jersey. As you remember, we're playing a musical chair, so we've got some folks coming in now. We've got Warren Valentine, talk show host and attorney Warren Valentine. Warren, welcome to Election Night 2020 on Radio 1. There he is. Hey, Warren. Can Warren hear us? Not hearing Warren. All right. And we also got blogger Brandon.
I'm so glad to be here.
Hey, thank you, Warren. We'll get you in a second. We got blogger Brandon with us. He's a political blogger. Brandon.
How you doing, brothers? Good to see you.
Yes. Interesting conversation here. We've got Lincoln Ware from Cincinnati, the Buzz. And we've got we've got Dr. Arnold's with us as well. And we're having a conversation as we discuss Election Night 2020. So anytime you hear any results, just shoot it out for us. So let me go back. Let me go to Warren. Warren, because you're also on the radio. Have you been hearing that a lack of enthusiasm amongst the folks? I don't think Warren can hear me.
I think he has a delay. He might have a delay there.
Okay, but Brandon, back to you.
Have I been hearing a lack of enthusiasm on my end?
Yeah.
No, not really. It's been frothy. A lot of people have been talking about a lot of different things. I come from California. Man was right. We have 55 electoral votes. We're the 5th largest economy in the world. Border to border, it's a very diverse state. I mean, most people stupidly.
I haven't been hearing a lack of.
Oh, okay. Well,
internet.
go ahead, brother. I'm gonna let.
I
No, I'm
think
gonna
by
let you go ahead
midnight
and
we
finish.
may know who the president of the United States is. I don't know if you guys are hearing. I think we will know who the president is by midnight tonight. I think that.
Go ahead. His connection is kind of choppy. Okay, Brandon. He says that we may know by midnight. I see Mayor Van Johnson has joined us as well, but he's the mayor of Savannah. But before we get to Mayor Johnson, Brandon, I'm gonna let you finish. Can you? Warren Valentine says we may know by midnight. Is that how you read it as well?
Well, it depends. I'm not in Pennsylvania. It depends on the mail-ins. We had huge. This is the largest return that we have seen. I hope you guys can hear me. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. But this is the largest return that we have seen. And in California, we usually finish later on. I mean, but we've had so many because of COVID and because of the way that Newsom has put this together. And I should say LA County, where I'm from, voting was its best ever. The nitizens are people who come on my live stream, Nitus, and I've asked all of them how their voting experiences were, and to a person, they're saying this was remarkable. No lines, at most maybe 10 minutes. You got to vote in the Staples Center where the Lakers play. They gave you a little mask. You go downtown, you could do it. I usually used to vote. My polling place was in a garage in a small house. My neighborhood is mostly black. Small little pad, America, upside down flag showing you everything. Go in there and do your thing. They changed it twice. This time I was able to vote someplace. I live over this place called the Rose Bowl. Go down there, walked in this cavernous place. They had lines of voting machines, not that many people, just people moving in and moving out very steadily, really cool. Now that was because of COVID. But I have to say this, that there is a problem in our community, which I call the folded arms community, who sit back and they're basically brothers and sisters who are human voter suppressors. And they sit back and yell and they tell us voting doesn't do nothing and it doesn't mean anything. And all they do is sit back and you ask them, and I have a very salient question. I'm on your air all the time. And I ask this, Carl, I said, okay, how does your garbage get picked up? Because that's done through your city by people who are voted for to make the contract with the company or use the city to come pick up your garbage. And if you don't know that, then you don't know that voting is the first step. It's not the last, it's not the best, it's not the biggest, it's the first step in democracy. And so when we talk about what's going to happen with the whole country, California is going to be later on. We have 40 million people in this state. We've had 12 million of pre-vote. I don't know how many voted today. We're going to be counting ballots for a while, which brings me to my other point. I'm not going to take it off slide. DeJoy for the Postmaster General should be in jail. Yeah. No person should be able to stand between the enfranchisement of people's voice to be heard in this nation. No person. And what they've done and what they've allowed to do should be a cautionary tale to anybody that's sitting back talking about voting doesn't do anything, because they certainly thought about it enough for this man to dismantle $5 million machines across the nation, 671 boxes picked up, taken in, and taken out of people's jurisdiction so they couldn't vote early.
Right. I want to bring in one of our new guests here, Mayor of Savannah, Van Johnson. Mayor Johnson, welcome to Election Night 2020 on Radio 1.
Thank you.
I know you've been hearing the conversation there. I got to ask you, how was it in Savannah? How was the turnout?
Turnout has been absolutely phenomenal in Savannah. Savannah is Georgia's first city, is a majority African-American city. It's also a majority Democratic city. So we do well anyway here in Savannah. Our hope here is to overperform, to expand the issue to Georgia, where we have 159 counties. At this point, only about 50 have actually sent in results yet. So we have about 1.7 million votes that have been counted, and the president at this point is up. But we realize for us, the blessing has been that at one point Georgia was solidly red, and now Georgia would have been called 4 years ago. Georgia was called as soon as 7 o'clock came. Yeah. And now in Georgia is too close to call. And that is because of the extreme mobilization of young voters, African-American voters, folks who were in lines for 4 and 5 hours that want to take advantage of this wonderful opportunity we have here in Georgia.
Interesting. Let's see if Warren's got a better connection. Warren, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're good now. The turnout so far, have you heard, because you in addition to being an attorney, you also do a talk show like Lincoln and myself. Have you heard that people are not turning out to vote? There's some sort of reluctance to vote from our community?
Well, I'll say this, and I'll use different states. If you look at Georgia, right? You look at the job that Stacey Abrams and the whole state of Georgia has done organizing votes and getting new souls to the polls. Georgia's in play. North Carolina, if you look at what's happened in North Carolina and you look at how many new registers they had in the Democratic Party and in the Independent Party, North Carolina is in play. And quiet as kept, Texas is in play too. And I think a lot of people are excited about voting. They're going out in droves because of this president. I mean, what I've been telling people on air is simply this. Even when we had a Black president, we never had to build a wall around the White House, and downtowns and major cities never had to board up their cities because of an election night. Yep. That tells you everything you need to know about this country and how it needs to change. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Christian, Muslim, Black, whatever. This isn't who we are as a country. And so when you see something like that, what's really changing the dynamics of this, to be honest with you, is the younger generation. Because these younger kids who are 25 to 18 years old, who's voting for the first time, they don't have the same prejudices that other people have that's in the older generation. And they have friends who are gay and friends who are white or Black or Latino, or they have boyfriends or girlfriends who are other ethnicities. And because of that, they're looking at this in a whole different skew and perspective. And that's why I really believe by midnight tonight, I think that Biden is going to be announced the president of the United States. I really do believe that. I said this in 2008 with Obama, and everybody thought I was crazy. I said that by 11 o'clock Eastern time, Barack Obama would be president. I went on Lou Dobbs' show on CNN, and they laughed at me, asked me how old I was. And at the time, I was 28 years old. He said, "You're just a baby. You don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Look, I worked with this man in Chicago. Once people hear him talk, he's going to raise a boatload of money. And once they give him the money, he's going to win." Everybody laughed at me. I'm saying the same thing tonight about Biden. I think that it's going to be a shock. Once all these final tallies come in, I think it's going to be a shock how quickly everybody's anticipating that this is going to be a week from now because of Pennsylvania and all this other stuff. It's not going to be. It's going to be over with tonight.
All right. I'm going to go around.
Can I jump in there right quick?
Go ahead.
The millennial generation and Gen Z and some of the younger Gen Xers, he's absolutely correct. There's something to be said for having, I don't know if you guys saw this young man up against Purdue in Georgia.
Yeah.
Ossoff.
Yeah.
It was a remarkable moment because he looked at him and he said, "You're a crook."
Yeah.
So it's okay to have respect for institutions, but not reverence. I always say we need people who know how to drink and who've been in a fight in an alley and know that they can take a punch and then throw one. And I think a lot of young people they're not throwing out Schumer and Pelosi, but they need young blood in there to say we need to remake this world ours. And that's what you're going to see this come. I think what he's talking about is absolutely true. The Gen Z people, those young brothers and sisters, they have a full knowledge of how to handle these platforms that we're on right now, and they use them as weapons, as electronic ninjas. They're remarkable at it, crowdsourcing, going to situations. They understand where they are and how they're playing. Even using things like TikTok, the first wave of political TikToks were remarkable. If you had a chance to see these young brothers and sisters were dropping knowledge and dropping facts and dropping all kinds of different ideals right there within 1 minute. And it was remarkable. White, black, orange, purple, you get it. So what he's talking about is absolutely true. And they're coming. And there's going to be a little bit of resentment when they find out what we did with this economy, what we've done with their future. And they're going to show up in their own voting patterns. You best believe that.
All right. I want to go around the horn and ask the same question here from all of you guys. What are you seeing? Are you discerning that people are voting against Donald Trump or voting for Joe Biden? Let's go with Lincoln first. Lincoln.
Well, I think most of them are voting against Donald Trump. They don't like what they've seen the last 4 years. And like Like my man said, when have you seen them, prepare the White House to be overtaken? They're putting fences around the White House. Here in Cincinnati, we've got a fence around our courthouse. We've got a fence around the jail. I don't know who's going to break into the jail, but they've got a fence around the jail now. I don't know what they're afraid of there. But I mean, when have you ever seen things like this? So I think people are voting against Donald Trump. He came to Ohio and told people to stop buying Goodyear tires. He came to Ohio, but people will still vote for him who live in Ohio. Now, why would you vote for a guy, we've got a main company here in Ohio, Goodyear Tire, and he told people not to buy Goodyear tires. But yet, even some of the employees of Goodyear will still vote for this guy. So I think most of the people are voting against him. They don't like what they've seen the last 4 years, and they're tired, and they're done with it.
Wow. Dr. Arnold?
And I got to sign out.
All right. Lincoln's gone. But Dr. Arnold, your thoughts?
He's muted.
He's muted. Can you unmute Dr. Arnold?
There you go.
All right, there you go. Dr. Arnold?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I was saying I suffer from Trump fatigue. I am just tired of the antics and the foolishness and not showing the tax returns. And his whole family, And what really burned my biscuit is he's campaigning on Air Force One. I know the president needs the airplane, but I mean, this guy is campaigning using Air Force One, my tax dollars. I think tonight, going back to your question, I think tonight we're going to see a new day. I believe in my gut that Biden's going to take this thing. I think it's going to be tight.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be a landslide. I think.
But Dr. Arnold, the question was, are they voting against Donald Trump or they're voting for Joe Biden?
Oh, well, I think if they're like me, Joe Biden could have chose Donald Duck as his vice president. I'd vote for anybody but Trump. ABT, anybody but Trump. Yeah, I think they're voting against Trump. People want some normalcy. They want, a president that's going to act like a president. They call it what?
Go ahead, Warren.
STD.
Well,
all right.
Carl, I'll say this.
Go ahead.
Real talk.
Turn Warren's mic up a little bit.
I think people are voting against Trump because they're tired of Trump, but it's a little bit deeper than that too. And the reason I'm saying that is because I think that what Trump has done is he's empowered the underbelly of this nation. And now that the underbelly has risen and think they can do anything, you're seeing good people say enough is enough. Hey, I gave him a chance. I'm not giving him another chance because I see his behavior. And I can't vote for this guy because my kids are looking at him. My grandkids are looking at him. And so I think that's even a bigger tone in this because realistically, we don't know what's going to happen November 4th to January 21st. A lot of my fraternity brothers who are police officers told me personally, they cannot even take off work because they're the police departments around the country are so worried that it's going to be anarchy because of Trump. They can't even take off of work until January 22nd. So I think that you have a whole bunch of, it's like a hodgepodge. You got a whole bunch of different things going on here. And the sad part about it is this, and I'm not saying this to belittle anybody or to talk down anybody, because anybody who's been doing a trade for more than 10 years, they got a PhD in that trade. But the problem with our country is we're an uneducated country. If you look, we have 330 million people in this country. Only 27% of this country has a bachelor's degree. 12% has a master's degree. 1% has a doctoral degree or more. I fit all three of them because I got all three of them. But when you think about all this, it's just like, wow, that 330 million people here and only 27% of the people got a bachelor's degree. And this is why Trump was able to pull the wool over all these people. He could care less about poor people, about black people, about anything else. This is all about him and him making some money. And now he's trying to stay in the office because his ass is going to jail soon as he get out of office because they're going to charge him in New York. That's what this is all about. And that's why he's been acting the way he's been acting.
Well, let's go to Mayor Johnson. Mayor, is your city boarded up? You know, Warren just talked about the cops, no time off, and, you know, it's like a state of emergency. I know there's one declared in LA. What's happening in your town?
We're keeping our eyes on the pulse of the situation here. Simply put, we're not going to tolerate violence in our city for anybody or by anybody. But to answer your more direct question, I think people have been voting against Donald Trump. For the last 4 years, we have seen every day on the news white privilege, white male privilege at play. That this man has been able to do things that were absolutely unbelievable. At this moment, this president is having a campaign party in the White House. He's used presidential aircraft for campaign trips. He has released his boys for prison for not snitching on him. He has not released his tax returns. I mean, he's been able to do these amazing things, and we're sitting here. I think America, both good and bad, people of all races and hues, have finally looked and they said, wow, this is not right. Look at this privilege. And I think that is why people are like, you know, can you imagine 4 more years of a Donald Trump with nothing to lose?
Yeah, we got 2 minutes.
Nothing
before we go to the break. That's something to consider. But Brandon, your thoughts? You hang out with a lot of young people. Are they voting against Donald Trump or are they voting for Biden?
Well, in Cali, he's detestable in many ways. But remember, we got Orange County. It's amazing to me how many people are willing to be subjects. He presents this rule of the patriarchy, of this white male patriarch, the original people to set up the Constitution, right? He represents that. And these people are down for that because they believe in the stratification they will rule. That's why you have white Trumpers running up to black people and snatching their Black Lives Matter flag. That's why you have them surround Biden's bus and run a car damn near off the road. They're feeling themselves, like my man said, this underbelly's come out. But I will say this, it's even deeper than that, especially out here in LA County. We're voting against COVID. Nothing gets started in this nation until we tackle that. Nothing. I heard that in Florida, a lot of people voting, a lot of the older Floridians are voting for Trump because of what he's done for the economy. He didn't do a damn thing for the economy. I mean, the GDP supposedly went up 33%, but we were in a hole to begin with. We're still negative 3.6%. But Trump wants, right.
Hang on a second, Brandon. We got to take this quick break, and I know Warren's got to leave us. So, Warren, thanks for chiming in with us. And we'll come back after the short break right here on Election Night 2020 on Radio 1.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL. Information is power. Listen all weekend long on 1450 WOL and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com with Law Talk with Ethel Mitchell, Keeping Up with the Joneses, The Outlet with Kate Touch, Dr. Quarter, Moonman and the Fun Bunch. Download our mobile app and take us everywhere you are. Proudly serving the African American community. News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
This is Reality Radio.
The reality is that for far too long, there have been efforts to refocus the now $1.3 trillion annual spending power of the Black consumer market. Over the past several decades, there have been numerous Buy Black campaigns, but still, only about 3% of that $1.3 trillion circulates back to the Black community. So Let's try it again. Each week, we will identify 3 Black-owned businesses on Tuesday and spend money with them for the week. And then on the next Tuesday, we will identify 3 more in our local communities. The businesses for this week are
Excellent carpet cleaning, health, appearance, and preservation is the standard, making a difference one client at a time. Visit excellentcarpetcleaning.net. Bishop and Bishop Dental, your family-friendly dental practice delivering the best in general and cosmetic dentistry. Conveniently located in downtown Silver Spring. Visit bishopdental.com. Dina's Delights is a plant-based dessert company that makes delicious desserts with healthier ingredients, peanut and dairy-free, no white sugar and high fructose, with great taste. Visit dinasdelights.com.
This is Reality Radio with Kathy Hughes. What's your reality?
Listen to News Talk 1450 WOL on Alexa. Just enable Alexa first. Say, Alexa, enable 1450 WOL skill. Then say, Alexa, open 1450 WOL.
This is Carl Nelson from The Carl Nelson Show. Heard weekdays, 4 to 7. Thank you for listening to 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Now you, your friends, and family can enjoy News Talk 1450 anywhere you go. WOL, where information is power. This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
Okay. Welcome back to Election Night 2020 on Radio 1. I'm Carl Nelson, and before we left, we're speaking with Mayor Van Johnson, Mayor of Savannah. We have Brandon Boland. Brandon is one of the political blogger. And just joining us, we have Carol Angela Davis, and we're going to get to you in a moment. But before we let the mayor was speaking, I think it was the mayor? Or no, it was Brandon, actually. It was Brandon. So I'll let you finish your thought, Brandon.
Here in LA County, we're voting against COVID. And just to give you an example, California right now is neck and it's below Texas in the number of cases, right? But we're actually 5th in deaths per million. And that's behind Florida and New York and Illinois and Georgia. That's very important to understand because we've had to take measures. We've taken economic hits, but we also understand out here that nothing gets done unless COVID gets done. And you have a man out there who's raging and creating spreader events. Literally, I think there was a group from San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken, that finally was able to chart to show that there were actually cases connected to him having these rallies. We cannot sustain this. Every sector of our economy has tried it, is trying to. And yesterday, 2 children, one 13 and one 16, died of COVID from going to school. And we're trying to open up schools. We're trying to act like this is pre-COVID time, and we can't get this. And let me say this: at one point in St. Louis, all of the COVID cases were Black men. Yeah. You dig what I'm saying? I mean, who had died, the fatalities. We have a later on we can get to this, but we have a proposition that we're voting for right now that is directly connected to the fatalities and the morbidities that are connected to this COVID situation as it affects Black economies and Black communities, if you're talking about gentrification. So they're voting in that direction.
All right, hang on a second, Brandon. I want to bring in Carol Angela Davis. She's Director of Communications at FAMU. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. And thank you so much. Actually, I was Associate Director of Communications at FAMU, but I am with Impact Networks News. So I hope everybody's watching me on Instagram at Carol Angela D. And thank you so much for inviting me to the show. I look forward to the conversation.
Okay, we've been talking on a variety of subjects, and we talked about the young people, that some people say a lot of young people are going to the polls. Then we hear that a lot of them are not going. How are you seeing it from your vantage point?
Well, I hope they're going. The things that are happening now are going to affect them longer than they're going to affect us, frankly. So I hope that they're going. I hope that they understand. They seem to understand the gravity of the situation, most of them. I think that they've done an excellent job, over the past few years of coming together, frankly, as a community and pushing each other forward. I think we can learn a lot from them, the older generation, shall we say. So I think that the main thing for me that young people, old people, all people, Black people particularly, need to get out of this is that we came together in such a great way, and we have to stay together. Because, kind of building on what Brandon said and also what Warren said, and that is that at the end of the day, we have to be a strong people. we have to understand that when this election, even if Joe Biden wins, and I hope he does, but if he wins, we can't stop fighting for position, because that's what a democracy is all about. And we can't, we're fighting a great fight. We're fighting a great fight. Win or lose, we're still going to have to fight a fight, but not to think of it in the negative, but this is the way democracy works. And I hope that we are able to continue as we are. We support each other's businesses. We think about the buying decisions that we make. Really think about it. If you're going to buy insurance, think about who you're buying that from, et cetera, hair, nails, I don't care what it is. Do what some of these other communities are doing and make sure we are continuing to strengthen ourselves as a community, because no matter who wins, we've got to win. And right now, we're not doing as well as we should be doing. Our home ownership rates are not good. Our job rates, our education rates, I think, Brandon, maybe it was you or was Warren who mentioned that. Our education rates are not good. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Our health is not good. Our communities have a lot of toxins in them. We're walking down the aisles of the supermarket and picking up the chips, and it's killing us. So I think we have to make sure we win regardless.
Yeah. I want to bring somebody else too from Jackson, Mississippi. Ernest Mcbride. Ernest, welcome to the program.
Hey, man. Our polls just closed an hour ago, and I've been in contact with both SP's people. But the thing about it, they got to go round up the numbers and all. So I'm over here in Warren County. I had to come over here. This is 50 miles away from Jackson. But the Mike Espy's field representative, when he was Secretary of State and Congressman, is here. Is from Vicksburg, and then his assistant field rep, Doran Shields. So they're supposed to call me back when they can, get a read. But the state, with only about I think 6% of the votes in so far, they're looking at 54.5% for Hyde Smith and 43.1% for Mike. But that's I think that was at the 4% level, and we really don't start getting the reads until about 9 o'clock, between 9 and 10 our time, which would be 10 and 11 your time.
All right.
This is standard, but they would give the preliminary reports as they come in. It just run on
all right, stand by. Because we're watching. That was one of the close races we're watching. Mike Epstein, of course, in Mississippi, and also Kwesi and Fumi in Maryland, and also the race in South Carolina. But I want to go to Mayor Van Johnson, Savannah. So Mayor Johnson, if it holds up and Biden wins, and I'm going to ask the same question to Carol and to Brandon, what's expected following the next day? Creating a cabinet, because we hear there's a little struggle in the Democratic Party between the progressives and the moderates. So if it is a reality, if that struggle is real, how is Biden going to work that out?
Well, I think that our major challenge is to make sure that we don't die because of suicide, when for years there's been homicide. This is an opportunity for us, and it's going to have to be a meeting of the minds and the calling the forces together to determine what our platform is going to be. For 4 years, we cannot be just anti-Trump. They'll be back in our court. We would need to have a plan that we're able to move on together. And I think that has to happen very, very quickly. And I think it remains, as the sister just said, Sister Davis, that there's still we have to still hold Biden accountable.
Yes.
We cannot be the people that are taken advantage of. Now we're here. We'll see you again in 4 years. I think it's a responsibility to ensure that there are policies, there are things that we want in place. We have to be able to clearly articulate those, and then ensure accountability. If he's not living up to that, to hold him accountable for that, or we'll be in the same situation that got Donald Trump here in the first place. But,
Brandon, your thoughts?
Great people. I got to run off, and again, we have.
All right, thanks, Mayor. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you. Hopefully, your candidate wins.
Well, our candidate wins, and then we have 2 Senate races going on here. One for a unexpired term. That if Raphael Warnock pull this off, he'll take office tomorrow. And the second one John also. So we know we're looking at some great things. Don't count Georgia out. We are back in the mix. We are back in play. Thank y'all so much. God bless.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Van Johnson from Savannah. Brandon, again, the question about the progressives and the moderates in the Democratic Party, say that he wins, what happens?
Well, I'm from what can be called the justice left. I think that there needs to be a complete clean out. And I want people held accountable that did what they've done. The reason being is you can't have a Bill Barr come in there and reconstruct the Department of Justice. We get nothing from his Department of Justice. They're the ones that started to pin Black Lives Matter as a terrorist group, which fueled all kinds of hate crimes. But another thing that I think we really talk about, and this is, I mean, I hate to be the person that has to bring this up, but COVID is blowing a hole through Black wealth. An entire hole through it. We're catching, I spoke to a mortician recently for family reasons, and this person told me that most of the people in my city that have gone through their doors are Black and Latino. Now, what happens is if someone's of a certain age, they become vested in their job, but now they're also working with debt. They maybe had a second mortgage to send a kid to school or something, and they're servicing their debt so that it's taken care of by the time that they're looking for retirement. But if they die within that window, now you have a mortgage, you have young people, maybe 20, so you'll have to take care of it, and you have other debt that's not being serviced. The house is gone, and we're going to be in a deep recession because of this. I'm sorry, I really don't think, this is just my belief, and I've been in reading and seeing, I don't see us coming right back just because we change presidents. This is how awful and how big the dereliction of duty of Trump's handling of or mishandling of COVID has been. It is going to wreak havoc with Black economies, the small community economies, the small businesses, all over the place, until we take care of it, even if there's a vaccine. So we have to show ourselves up to begin. And I agree with the sister says, we have to start looking at each other, helping each other. I live in LA, Carl, I ride my bike. There are double, triple, quadruple the amount of tents of people living on the streets in the hills of Los Angeles, behind Dodger Stadium, under freeways, people with eyes, with their eyebrows up, because 6 months ago, they had no idea that they would be on the street. And now they're living next to people who've made it, their life to live on the street. And now you have this huge wave of population of people who are homeless, trying to get the same services. At the same time, we have a pandemic. So how are they supposed to wash their hands? How are they supposed to live up to the hygiene that you're supposed to have? So this thing is going to keep going. It's going to keep roiling on. And I got to tell you, most of the people that I've seen, their faces look like ours.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Carol?
Well, I totally agree. And the question is why? I mean, the question that we have to ask ourselves, all of us, is why? Because you spend money, and I'm talking the proverbial you, every day. Every single day. Who are you spending the money with? It is that clear. Because as Brandon said, all right, we're out here losing wealth, but we're also the biggest spenders on the planet. So if you're going to spend some money, you better watch it. Who's your dentist? Who's your doctor? Who cut your hair? Who sold you your hair? Who did your nails? Who did you buy your shoes from? You know darn well everything you want is on the internet, and you can find out whose site that is. And if you want to buy from your people, you can. So let's get ourselves back on track, get on our feet, hold Biden's feet to the fire. And frankly, and I used to live in LA, Brandon, I love LA. And I'll tell you something, I am a Kamala girl. But let me tell you something. These people who get elected, it takes a lot to get elected, okay? It takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of dollars. It takes a lot of workers. It takes a lot of favors, and you owe a lot of favors. So if we're quiet, even Kamala, and I'm very happy that she mentions the Divine Nine. I'm real happy about it.
You in there? Are you in there? Are you part of
No, I'm sorry. My mother was a Delta. My sister's a Delta.
Mine was too. My grandmother was too. Absolutely.
And my father was an Alpha, but unfortunately, I'm not able. But the point is, you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, we didn't pause. So when I talk to my young people, I say this. We're talking about the police, and we're correct. The police are completely out of whack. But remember, no one goes to jail without a prosecutor, okay? So let's not sit back and give our breaks to people like prosecutors who in many cases make the decisions that determine your fate. We have to hold, and let's not leave out the judges. Why do you think Trump appointed all those judges? Okay, we got to hold everybody's feet to the fire. Everybody's got to come to the table. We have to continue to stick together. Use our young people. Our young people. I'll start with the rappers because we know they have built tremendous wealth with each other, helping each other, hiring each other, grooming each other, nurturing each other. African Americans 50 plus. That wasn't necessarily the way we grew up, although I did come from Detroit where we did do that. But anyway, but the point is that's what we got to do. We come on, we got this.
Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. You mentioned something. I've got a follow-up question for you, because the complaints that I hear from Black folks is saying that we vote these people in. We send them to Congress, send them to Capitol Hill, the state capitals, and they don't do anything for us. They let us down. And the only time we see them is election time. What do you say? What's your response to that, Carol?
Well, we're letting ourselves down, okay? Because if we put you in office, we take you out. First of all, we have shown what the power of marching and the power of organizing and the power of being involved can do, and what it can sway and what it can stop, and the, excuse my French, stupidity that it can even stop from starting. So the bottom line is, if we put somebody in office, we expect them to do exactly what they said they were going to do, which is the reason why we put them there. And if they don't, we have to remove them. But more importantly, run for office yourself. You get in office. You be the one. You say what you're going to do. You get in office and do it. And may I say this, please, Carl? Because I like to talk to people who say, we have a lot of people out there, especially people having a hard time with school. We have a lot of people out there that could be on the school board. These schools are not working for you and your children. You need to get on the school board. And I want to say to them, I want to say to all my young people, no matter what, run for office. I don't care what you're coming with. You got a brain and you're out there working in the United States of America every day. You know what the problems are. If you have children, you really know what the problems are. Run for office and make the change that you want to see.
Right. And Brandon, you get a chance to ask you about the young people, the hip hoppers, the rappers who are out there and meeting with Donald Trump. Your assessment.
Well, now's not the time for amateurism.
Oh, please.
And I think if you got to place the same amount of respect that you have to put into for rappers to come up with their lyrics and to sit down with beats and create this whole world, you got to give respect to the idea of the politician. And I mean that by people who actually are well-educated, are seated for it, and are to be leaders. And you don't have to be just a politician to be a leader. You can be an organizer. You can be a person like Dr. King, the other brother, the other reverend out in the South out there who's doing his barber, who's doing remarkable work. But you have to be versed in those areas. People talking about Ice Cube. Ice Cube came in with the CWB that was put contract with Black America that was put together 10 years ago, running around, and he was tooled. He was used as a tool. Yeah. And he started talking in circles around, and it ended up being a bad situation. I kind of feel for him, but at the same time, his arrogance led him into this situation. And then we find out, of course, I tell people all the time, go back and read what happened. Ice Cube actually put out an ad for his Big Three basketball team that included some people that were involved with some of his financing from Qatar. And I tell people, go look and see with the connection between that and Jared and Qatar and Jared 666 property and how that all came through. And you're seeing these people just jump up. Lil Wayne, some of these rappers have never
thought Lil Wayne was going to do anybody. Nobody thought, please.
But here's the thing. They think that all they have to do is wave a brown skin rag in front of you, and all of a sudden you'll come running. And that's not only arrogant, that's insulting. I'm not saying that Ice Cube can't lend his voice, but let's follow. I say I'm an entertainer as well. Def Jam done all that stuff. Let's follow the ideals. Let's follow the path of a Belafonte, who lended money, voice, platform, time, energy, organizational skills, but didn't get out front.
Right. It seems like we but go ahead, Carol. I'll let you finish up.
Okay, thank you. The message that I don't know if this is what Brandon is saying. I don't think it is, but I don't want people to feel like they have to have a certain packaging in order to have something to say.
Right.
Because you don't. I mean, okay, we've all got whatever education we've got. I mean, our generation is the most educated generation. We know that. We've got all kinds of degrees up the yin yang. We all do. However, the younger people have not had the opportunity. In many cases, we know how many. I used to teach at Hampton University, so we know how many kids had to drop out of school, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. And I don't want those people to think that because they don't have the quote unquote packaging, that they are not someone that should be listened to, that they are not intelligent, that they do not have something to say. I want them to know they can make a contribution to society. And because we are frankly all becoming increasingly poorer as the day goes on, we're all on our way to poverty. So please don't let your economic situation think you can't do anything.
Well, I'm not saying that it has to be packaged, because I don't think there's just one way to leadership. I'm a person who's out in the streets. I'm not an organizer for people in the streets. I'm one of the foot shoulders. And this is the first time in my life in this type of situation. And Carl will tell you this, because I often call him from protests, that I haven't been able to go out because of COVID. I went out twice. And here's the thing that I've seen, though. We started with a very 5 years ago. We did the first Black Lives Matter for Trayvon Martin on Hollywood Boulevard. It was up and down. It was up and down Highland, and there were 20 of us. This year, this past summer, it was down Hollywood Boulevard. And there were 50,000 people. That's right. And most of those people were people from all walks of life. Now, dig this. The second one I went to, I thought I was coming behind them. I want to take some pictures of the bus, send them to Carl, let them show on the show, whatever. I'm going behind. I'm right in the middle of it. And this is up on Fairfax. Now, if anybody understands LA, Fairfax ain't nowhere near black. All right. So there were white kids with black people, Black Lives Matter, up against a line of police officers. Now, that's a line I've seen several times in my life. And what I'm saying is it has evolved. The young brother Warren that was on here before, it has evolved. There are people that you have many leads, many roads to leadership. So don't get me wrong. I'm just saying politics is the coldest game in town. And when you put amateurs in there at this particular level, the way Ice Cube came in, either he's playing or got played. Because
well, I mean, Brandon, if what you're saying is correct, and I'm sure it is, about the guitar money, let's just be clear. When those chips are laid down, you knew the day you took the money, the day was going to come when the chip was going to be called in. And it obviously got called in. But that's my point too, Brandon, is we have enough money in our community. I'm talking about not just athletes, because they have a lot of money, and entertainers, but we've got tremendous business people in our community. And we've got enough so that in our community, we should be able to grow enough businesses so that we don't have to go get that chip from Qatar, that when it came due, it also came with a razor on it that's going to slice our neck open.
Well, let me ask you this, though.
Hang on a second, Brandon. Let me ask you this, though, Carol, and Brandon, too, after, but I'll go Carol first. Why do they always go to athletes or entertainers? These are really hard questions. We've got good economists, we've got lawyers, we've got in any degree that the government wants to ask a question, what do the black people want? But they go to these athletes and these entertainers all the time. What's going on with that?
But I think historically, let's face it, when they started to take a knee, that was the first time really in mass, I think, that I can remember that our athletes really did stand up for substance. You know what I mean? And in the entertainment community, it's only been the recent history that we've been able to make certain types of waves. I mean, with the exception of somebody like a Harry Belafonte, but let's face it, there was one Harry Belafonte, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe. So maybe it's because, historically they have not expected these particular groups of people to respond in a certain way, and they're starting to respond as well. I hope that they take their dollars. I mean, and I'm hearing that you've got this group up in Oakland, California, trying to buy I guess it's the city of Oakland's share of the stadium so they can bring in an NFL team. We are doing tremendous things, but a lot of it is very recent, and I think we have to just keep it going.
Brandon, well, hang on a second, Brandon. I just got a note here that Biden's got 89, Trump's got 72. Trump has declared the winner in South Carolina and Alabama. And they tell me that Florida, Georgia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Texas, Virginia, all too close to call so far. So that's the latest from the front voting. So Brandon, I'll let you finish your response.
They go to entertainment, and sports is part of entertainment because the money is fluid. It comes in chunks. They're young millionaires, most of the time. And there are different areas that can also add to it. I tell people this all the time. Nobody wants to believe me. And I don't mean it in a bad way, but there has always been a handshake between Black entertainment and businesses that want to couch money or move it through entertainment, or otherwise to launder it. Okay, in certain situations, when the second comedy boom happened across the nation, was all these small rooms and all these small entrepreneurs, and a lot of these young brothers and sisters actually wanted to be promoters, but they were dealing with certain types of money that was coming nefariously, mostly drug money. Okay, and that's a fluid type of cash. Now, the reason why we go to athletes and entertainers is because there's a pot of cash that comes in at a very set rate that's enormous immediately. And that means that they can move it without it becoming embroiled or caught up in a bunch of regulations and they can invest from one. You're dealing with one entity, the person. You dig what I'm saying? So that's why it's easier to deal with that. You got to look at some of the early record companies that came out of Jamaica. And you'll find the same bill. This is actually the 1960s, the same kind of structure that was put to it when they were making money and how they were moving money. It's the same kind of way. And the problem with that, of course, is that it can't be our only place where we're getting money. And we have to start making more connections with other nations. Right. Nigeria, oil-rich nations that need to couch their money the same way that these. Let me tell you something. I know I'm just want to take everybody's time, but there's a reason why Nollywood and China's Hollywood and Nigeria's Hollywood, why they haven't blown up, is because Hollywood in the United States of America is still the best money launderer in the world. Wow. You get better return, and that's what white folks use. These giant corporations, rather than get their money in Cayman Islands, put it in a movie, let it couch there for 90 days. Every movie is a business. It's set up for 90 days. Let it couch there for 90 days, and you'll get maybe 5% back on 5% that you have to pay of a fee. To lose, that's it. You're not gonna lose 10% or 15%. So that's how they do it. And there's ways to deal with it. So I think we have to get away from we all have to go to LeBron and say, LeBron, start the school, build the factory. You know what I'm saying? Like LeBron's like, look, I gotta play ball at some point, God dang.
So true. Oh, Brandon, it's just so interesting to hear that analysis from you. It's just amazing. Thank you for that information.
Dig it.
Right. We're coming up on a break real soon. Ernest, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I got this switch on off, and so I was listening into stream of information, and so I didn't know whether I had it off or on. Okay, let me just give you. Hey, Carl. Hello.
Yeah. I tell you what, hang on, Ernest. We got to take a short break. Carol, thank you. Brandon, thank you. We got some new folks coming in, and hey, it's a great conversation. And keep watching, keep listening.
Hey, Carl, before you let them go,
hang on.
Ethiopia is unfair facts.
Ernest,
Ethiopia is unfair facts.
We'll be back right here. 800-450-7876, Selection Night 2020. Thank you.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Delson on 1450 WOL.
In this one small world, we share together.
There are lots of good things we can still share. We can share hope.
We can share laughter. We can share encouragement. We can share inspiration.
We can share unity.
We can share healing. We can share joy.
We can share love.
We can share truth.
So during these times, we can't forget.
We can beat this together.
Because together,
we are one.
Agnes was in deep trouble with the IRS.
I owed the IRS a lot of money.
She found out about Optima Tax Relief.
They guaranteed me that they were going to help me out the best that they can. And they did.
Optima stopped the IRS.
Optima Tax took care of everything.
Are you in deep trouble with the IRS? You might want to listen to Agnes.
I would refer Optima Tax Relief to anyone.
Call Optima right now for your free consultation. Call 800-799-0977. 800-799-0977.
Optima Tax Relief.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Urban One celebrates the legacy of Helen Jones Woods, a pioneering jazz trombonist with the historic integrated all-female jazz band, the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, during the 1940s. Woods' dedication to helping minority students at the Pineywood School will continue with your support. To donate, log on to give.pineywoods.org. That's give.pineywoods.org. give.pineywoods.org. WOL, Washington, D.C., an Urban One radio station, minority controlled and operated, serving the African American community for over 40 years, and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com.
The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio One Incorporated, or their management.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Dawson on 1450 WOL. Brought to you by the Mind of an Entrepreneur show, where Wendy Muhammad gives you mental strategies for navigating the world of business and building a Black economy. And 1450 WOL.
Okay, welcome back to Election Night 2020. Again, I'm Carl Nelson. We've got a new set of guests who I've got to introduce you to, folks. So we've got Dr. Ray Wimbush. Dr. Ray Wimbush, just raise your hand there. That's Dr. Ray Wimbush for us, folks. We also have McKinley Price, Mayor McKinley Price from Newport News in Virginia. And we also have Jay Bryant. Jay Bryant's a radio host in Birmingham. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. And I just got to note that Donald Trump is leading in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Texas. So Mayor Price from Newport News, how does it look to you now that you heard that Donald Trump's leading those three states?
Well, I'm still trying to be optimistic about things. It's still too early to call, so we're just going to have to wait and see.
All right, Jay.
Well, I was kind of shocked a little bit that Trump is leading in North Carolina. That's the state that I was pretty much watching most of the night, but I'm still encouraged. It's still early for it.
Dr. Wimbush, what does Biden have to do to pull it out, man?
Well, we've got to wait, as the mayor said, we've got to wait for the absentee votes, the votes that haven't been mailed in. We're not going to know the results of this election for at least 3 days. The Dems have already flipped one seat in Colorado. I'm optimistic they're going to flip another seat in Arizona. That might be going out on a limb, but I think McSally's going to lose in Arizona. So I'm still optimistic.
Right. Mayor, are you still optimistic as well? Things going to be close?
Yes, I am.
And
it's just that we've had historic voting. I know we've done our part, so all we can do is sit and wait.
Yeah, and Jay, Hillary lost, and they blamed it on the black vote. Do you think if Biden loses, can they do that this time?
I think the black vote is going to show up. I think early voting. I think it has been in the early voting, and I'm kind of dismayed a little bit because the Dems are picking up senatorial seats, but here in Alabama, we lost Doug Jones, who lost his seat to Tuberville, which is a Trump supporter. So, but the Dems have a little race to make up, and I think they still can do it before the end of the.
Wasn't that kind of expected though, with Doug Jones losing?
It was. He won against a very flawed candidate before. And this one didn't have the garbage that Roy Moore had. So it was the Democrats expected to lose the seat. So that's not anything that hit them. That's not something that hit them from the back, and they didn't know it was coming.
Dr. Wimbush, Trump's administration saying they hope to peel off as much as 30% of the black male vote. And that's why they enlisted these hip hoppers and some of these rappers to help them reach that goal. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I would probably disagree with the enlisted. I would say use the black rappers and did it quite successfully with a lot. I think it's really funny how race is undergirding almost everything that the commentators are saying on radio. If we blacks turn out and probably will turn out, this may be a bigger vote than Obama. So they can't blame it on us. I would blame it on white women because they were responsible for Trump winning in 16 by 53%. So we're not taking the rap this time for losing this election. We had a weak candidate. I mean, I really believe that he was a weak candidate, a strong vice presidential candidate, but a weak person leading the ticket. And I think this is really a race between whether or not we're going to maintain white supremacy or increase it and expand it.
You know, what Dr. Wimbush just said, Mayor McKinley, I got to ask you this. From where you sit, are people voting against Donald Trump or voting for Joe Biden?
I think it was more against Donald Trump. You didn't have the enthusiasm and the that you've had before with a Democratic candidate for sure. But I think people felt that the vote against Trump would be strong enough to carry the day.
Yeah, Jay, you read it that way as well?
Well, I think we might be a little bit pessimistic here because I think Biden still has a great chance to win tonight. I do believe that we're going to see where a lot of our young people, when the early votes and absentee votes are counted, we're going to see where a lot of our young people got engaged and actually voted this time. So I'm anxious to see that and see those numbers when they come out, what our young people actually do. But there were so many movements going on at one time that I think that they have been mobilized. And I think when they count up those votes, especially in the battleground states, I think you're going to see Biden come out with you're going to see a blue wave that we are thinking that's going to happen.
Ray, is that Dr. Wimbush? Is that how you read it too? A blue wave coming?
Yeah, the reason why Trump put so much energy into slowing down the mails, all of this stuff, the big victory in Houston yesterday about saying that they've got to count those votes, all of that stuff, because we're used to seeing these projections come out on, the night of the election. But that's all they were. That's all they've ever been. The problem this time, we have a huge vote. So the media had to backpedal on saying we're going to give you a winner on Tuesday night. I don't think this election is going to be decided. I think at the earliest it'll be decided is Thursday. And it could, if it goes into the courts, it may not be decided. It may be another Gore v. Bush.
Wow. So Mayor, help us out here. What happens if the scenario that Dr. Wimbush just alluded to happens? Donald Trump still in charge, or somebody else?
Well, I'm president of a 501c3 organization, African American Mayors Association. So we're going to continue to work no matter who's in charge. Our main focus is to get this virus behind us, COVID-19 recovery. We're going to be talking about policing reform, racial injustice, Black businesses, HBCUs, and healthcare. That's still our platform, no matter who's in charge. If Trump is successful, that just means that mayors are going to be, I think, extremely more important in this country because, our people are hurting, and we're going to have to find a way to either work with this administration if he is successful again, to solve some of the problems that we have.
Well, how do you feel, Mayor? Because, he blames a lot of the problems in the urban centers, especially the Democratic centers and governors as well, because they're the Democrats. So they have a Democratic mayor, a Democratic governor, and that's why these cities and these states are failing. Is that a fair critique?
No, I don't think that's a fair critique. I mean, he has politicized everything. I mean, from wearing a mask to save people, when you make that a political endeavor as well, he's trying to make everything political. and it just isn't.
Yeah, and Jay, this whole pandemic, if he loses, he'll probably blame it on the pandemic, the coronavirus. Your
Well,
thoughts?
I think that the American public, who have seen the rise in this pandemic and in this flu season, and have seen their loved ones victimized, and even those who have left us. I think, and then the gall of this administration to see so many businesses go under, particularly minority businesses have gone under because of this pandemic, which the administration had no plan to fight, which the Obama administration said they left in place something of this nature. So that should be foremost on Americans' voters' mind. And it's ironic that people who, for some reason, say, well, he was good on the economy that he inherited from the Obama administration. You can say so much, and after a while, people just see through it. I am amazed at how much this administration has said so much untrue statements, and people still follow it. That's amazing. But the pandemic has got to be resolved one way or the other. We cannot go through. We are bleeding now, and this administration has no way to handle the bleeding or to stop the bleeding. And now it's about to hemorrhage, and then it has no problem. It has no answer for that. So hopefully, we're going to have a new administration in place to deal with this, and that would be because if we deal with the pandemic, then we can deal with getting people back on their feet, which means that we need stimulus packages for our business community, particularly the minority business community. They some of them are not going to come back, but those that we can save, we need to do it.
Yeah, and Dr. Wimbush, Jay was talking about the pandemic. Speaking to a friend of mine in Vegas, and he says it's almost like a ghost town. He was a Biden supporter. Now he says he's backing Donald Trump. He says we got to open up these businesses. People are hurting. People are losing their homes. They've lost their jobs because a lot of them, rely on the tourist industry in Vegas to work, and they're losing their homes. They've lost their jobs, and no checks are coming in. And he says, we got to open up the country. What do you tell a person like that?
But it's like the proverbial dog chasing its tail. If you open up businesses, you're going to increase the spread of the virus. We've been our governor here in Maryland, who happens to be a Republican who's not voting for Trump, he has opened this state up in a way that is safe, is, all of that. Look at what's happening in Florida with regard to the spread of the virus, and in Georgia, where these states are saying money is over people. And it should be the other way around. You are not going to get this economy back in order until you get rid of the virus. And I would also say I'm a little more pessimistic. I think if Trump is reelected, it's the end of American democracy the way we know it. You're going to see a strong president that is not going to be ignore checks and balances, and who has already and will continue to make crimes and high crimes and misdemeanors.
Yeah, and Mayor McKinney, I'm sure, Price, I'm sure this is an issue that you have to deal with as the mayor. You're deciding whether, the business community is probably on you. They want to open up, and then you've got this pandemic. So how do you balance that? What do you say?
Well, fortunately, we have a governor that's a physician and has been on the forefront of trying to get the state through this. But if we do what we need to do locally, that's not going to help until we have a national model. Right. It's just going to continue to skip from area to area like it's doing right now. It's now in the Midwest. And then as soon as they tackle that, he says there are fires that they're putting out, but it's going to continue to spread, jump back. It's going to go back into New York, especially when we have other countries who have done the right thing and see the results that are working. Why we won't do that and have a national effort to get this under control? You can't open the businesses like they should be to be successful. I mean, open a business up at 50% when they're already only making 2% margin in the first place. That's not going to be helpful. And you have to have those guidelines, or you're going to just continue to have this virus continue to spread. And it is deadly.
But do the business people in your city, do they understand that?
Oh, they understand that. They understand, and they've been very cooperative. We've had, guidelines that we're trying to use. And as the numbers in the community go down, you're able to successfully open the businesses, to expand them, at least go outside while the weather is good. And businesses are getting more creative. They're trying to do more home delivery for food and whatnot. But there are businesses, like you said, that will never recover. I mean, we just lost movie theaters. Some of those things are just going to be history.
Yeah. Jay, you wanted to say something? Was it Jay?
I was going to ask this question. If this president is reelected with no national plan to fight COVID-19, and if he gets reelected, what incentive does he have to do anything anymore with this?
Right.
Yeah. I think we all would be.
I think the only incentive is going to be that you're going to see the numbers. At some point, the nation is not going to be able to tolerate. This theory about herd immunity. That's fine, but you're going to lose about 3 million people if that theory is in fact truthful with this virus.
Right.
This virus is not a typical virus.
Right.
And see, I think your point, Mayor, is very important. They remember at the beginning of the pandemic, they were really touting they were touting Sweden as an example of herd immunity. Look at Sweden's numbers right now. Right. It's the worst country in Europe in terms of it containing the virus. The other thing is this, it's like we have 50 different strategies because we have 50 states rather than a national policy. The United States is the only country on earth right now that does not have a national policy to contain the virus. And that's why we're in the trouble that we're in. The other thing, the hypocrisy, and I know this is a moral statement, but the hypocrisy of the Republicans who will confirm in the middle of a pandemic and in the middle of an election a Supreme Court justice in 8 days, but will not give businesses that we're talking about or relief packages to the average American. Some countries like Canada have given like $2,000 for 4 or 5 months so that people can live and can plan. People are suffering all over, and there's just no national policy to deal with this.
And the man who's sitting on that bill just got reelected.
Exactly, Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell, yeah. So Mayor, who wins tonight? Is that the very first thing on their desk? They've got to solve this pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. It's the number one issue in the country.
That's right.
It affects transportation. It affects the business income. It affects our hospitals. How long can these physicians last doing this at breakneck level? They're going to start to deteriorate as well. And then you're going to have people deciding, as they are in some cities, who gets treatment and who doesn't. And who do you think is going to be at the bottom of that list?
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, do we need a national plan, or does he kick it to the states like what he's done?
I think we need a national plan because you can't, there's so many things like if you look at history as who was our best teacher, as Malcolm said, you see how Roosevelt mobilized and converted corporations to make tanks during World War II. You see throughout history American presidents taking charge of national crises, Republicans and Democrats. This guy doesn't know how to walk and chew gum at the same time. Right. And what happens is that by having 50 different strategies at the beginning of the pandemic, governors were competing against each other because they had to get PPE and all of this stuff. And he's still and right now he's a super spreader with these rallies or whatever you call them. I think the people that follow Donald Trump are in a cult. I mean, by definition, and I'm a social scientist, they are in a cult because anything that he says they will do. And
Jay,
anything he says, they will believe.
I got to bring you in on that one. Dr. Emmett says the Trumpsters, they're a cult. Trump's a cult leader. Too harsh or on the money?
You're on the money with that because, like Brother Ray just said, we have to have a national solution to this problem. And Biden is correct. He has given in, at first he called himself the war president and the virus was the war. And now he has given in, surrendered to this virus, that he's actually doing nothing. And as a matter of fact, talk about firing the health experts. So, he has no idea where to go with this virus. Also, he has no idea how to deal with when you have people in the Senate who are saying, who getting great, making six figures by being in the Senate, don't want to give up on $1,200. But these people themselves had the best healthcare packages in the country. Yet they cannot get any kind of relief, and the president okays us. That's why I'm sure that there will be a big shift in the Senate.
All right, Eddie's got a question for us on Facebook. He says, how is it that the black vote is said to determine the winner of the race when the black population only makes up 12% make up 12% of the population in the country? Anybody want to?
Yeah, that's an easy answer. People always say the way Ohio goes, the way the nation goes. With the black folk is concentrated in large cities in the United States: New York, Chicago, Cleveland, Baltimore, and so forth. When black folk don't show up, that state goes Republican. That happened in 2016 with Hillary Clinton, or even that she lost. Many people lost Florida primarily because she lost the black vote. The black vote, even though we comprise 12% of the population, are in critical states that have all the electoral votes. And when we don't show up at the polls, that's when Republicans win.
Yeah,
and Trump knows that.
Right, he does. He knows that for real. And Mayor Price, the fact that some folks don't believe in voting, some of our people just don't believe in voting. You understand how the system works because you got elected. What do you say to those people who refuse to vote, refuse to get involved, just apolitical?
That's something that politicians have been trying to struggling with for years. But if you don't vote, you have no reason to complain, none. And that's the first thing. Usually when someone will come up during our session and they have a complaint, I want to say, have you voted? Did you vote? Who did you put in? Here's the person that's in charge of that problem. Did you help him get in office or her in office? Then there's nothing else for you to say.
Yeah.
But it is critical. Virginia should be the case model for why one vote counts. 2 years ago, we could have turned the Republican Senate to a Democrat. We had one senator that tied. They had to pick in a bowl. It's like flipping a coin who was going to win to change that. And the Democrat lost by one vote.
Wow.
One vote would have changed that whole structure of the Senate. And if that isn't an example of Virginia, why every vote counts, there is not a better one in this country.
Yeah. Jay, what are they telling you? Your listeners, what are they telling you? Why they're not voting or why they're sitting this one out?
Unfortunately, and it's really unfortunate that I reside in a red state, and it's although Birmingham is a blue city, right. We know that we have come out and we have voted, and I think the numbers going to show where we voted primarily early voting. We came out in big numbers, but outside of Birmingham and the Black Belt, as it's called, you're going to see where the rural areas went heavily for Trump. But I'm still encouraged, and I see the young people are still encouraged that they're getting involved, they're working, and the Democratic party put some good. They had some good workers out there on the front line, and to get the people out to the vote. And I think they did a good job, but I think we are falling short because we got to work on the rural areas as well.
I think
Go ahead, Mayor.
if I could, I think the early voting, I think, has been extremely strong for minorities, because when you look
Right.
at the polls today, as I traveled around, there weren't lines like they usually are. That's because most minorities took advantage of this early voting,
Right.
or the absentee voting, and as you said, it's going to be a few days before those numbers come in. So I don't.
And I tell you something that I would love to see, Mr. Mayor. I would love if the Democrats take control of the both houses, we should be able to do away with a lot of this voter suppression.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to really, that should be on one of the top things besides COVID-19, something that the Democrats should do to protect the black vote as protecting any vote.
Right.
They need to have some of the stuff about suppressing the vote is just too Jim Crow for me.
Absolutely.
Right. And Mr. Mayor, I know you've got to leave us, but I got to ask you this. What we've seen tonight, do we need more black folks to know more about voting, training about, elections? And if so, if we need that, whose job is it to teach us?
Well, I think you're going to see, I think you're going to be surprised by the black turnout when the numbers are in. And I think as the gentleman just explained about his city in Birmingham, we've got a young, dynamic mayor there in that city.
Absolutely.
And more mayors like that, Montgomery, others, Richmond, these young black mayors that are now out here, you're going to see this generation begin to turn out, because they're going to see what these mayors are doing and the impact they have on the decisions that affect their day-to-day life. And I think they're going to see more and more of that. So I think we're going to see, I'm encouraged by it.
Yeah.
And I'm encouraged that this vote will continue to increase in the minority communities.
But you know what, the senators will say, we've had, Kenneth Gibson, Tom Bradley, Amanda Jackson, and the list goes on and on, of black mayors, and nothing's changed, they're going to say. So what makes you optimistic of these set of new, younger black mayors are going to make a difference?
I think if you look at the cities that they represent, I represent an organization that has 500 black mayors in it, the African American Mayors Association. There are approximately 500 black mayors in this country. And this is from cities as small as 1,000 all the way to Houston with 2 million. And matter of fact, Houston's mayor will be the next president of this organization, Sylvester Turner. So I'm encouraged by that. And I think you're going to see more and more people ready to get into politics, because you're seeing first-time female mayors, New Orleans, you're seeing first-time female and minority mayors across this country. And that has got to be our hope, because that's where the rubber meets the road, is local politics. Right. And you have more effect of doing things in your city at a local level than at the national. We turn out for national levels, and only about 17 to 20% of us vote in the local elections. That's got to change.
May I say something?
Go ahead, Jay.
I agree with Mayor McKinley, because I can recall Mayor Maynard Jackson actually getting a coalition together to take Atlanta to prosperity, and increased the middle class, lifted up the middle class, and even lifted up the upper class, so they can enjoy the economic prosperity that was coming into Atlanta. I saw him, do that. And he took me to the side, and Maynard Jackson said, you have to you got to realize that pie is bigger than any one group out there. And it's big enough for everybody to have a piece of that economic pie. And that was his philosophy. Of course, though, he also handed the baton back down to Andrew Young. But we saw where Atlanta took on a big, and a lot of black businesses opened up during his tenure as mayor.
Yeah, but how do we get those kind of mayors? You know, you mentioned Manny Jackson. And I tell you what, well, I hear the drummers warming up, so we got to go out and take a break. Mayor Price, thank you for your contribution. I know it's a busy night for you because this is your game, but we got to take a break, and we thank you for serving us tonight. Folks, you listen to Election 2020 on Radio 1, 1450 WOL. Be back right after this short break.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Delson on 1450 WOL.
Now on view at the Barnes in Philadelphia, Elijah Pierce America, featuring over 100 rarely seen works by virtuoso African-American woodcarver Elijah Pierce, who is also a barber, preacher, and storyteller. Don't miss this major retrospective of the self-taught artist's work outside of his home city of Columbus, Ohio in more than 25 years. Advance reservations encouraged. Learn more about new health and safety guidelines at barnesfoundation.org/safe visit and plan your trip today. The Barnes. After a visit, you'll never stop seeing the Barnes.
This is reality radio. The reality is that for far too long, there have been efforts to refocus the now $1.3 trillion annual spending power of the Black consumer market. Over the past several decades, there have been numerous Buy Black campaigns, but still, only about 3% of that $1.3 trillion circulates back to the Black community. So, let's try it again. Each week, we will identify 3 Black-owned businesses on Tuesday and spend money with them for the week. And then on the next Tuesday, we will identify 3 more in our local communities. The businesses for this week are
Excellent Carpet Cleaning. Health, appearance, and preservation is the standard, making a difference one client at a time. Visit excellentcarpetcleaning.net. Bishop and Bishop Dental, your family-friendly dental practice delivering the best in general and cosmetic dentistry. Conveniently located in downtown Silver Spring. Visit bishopdental.com. Dina's Delights is a plant-based dessert company that makes delicious desserts with healthier ingredients, peanut and dairy-free, no white sugar and high fructose with great taste. Visit dinasdelights.com.
This is Reality Radio with Kathy Hughes. What's your reality?
Information is power. Listen all weekend long on 1450 WOL and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com with Mount Pleasant Baptist Church, New Horizon, in and out of sports with Butch McAdams. Keep hope alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson and Bishop T.D. Jakes. Download our mobile app and take us everywhere you are. Proudly serving the African American community. News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power. This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Delson on 1450 WOL.
And thanks for joining us, or for staying with us, folks. It's Election Night 2020, as you heard. I got an update for you. We understand that Joe Biden has 98 votes, electoral votes, and Donald Trump has 86. Trump just took Louisiana, Arkansas, and Biden took New Hampshire. See, joining us, we've got some new faces with us. Before we left, we had Dr. Ray Wimbush from Morgan State. We have Jay Bryan, is a talk show host. Dr. Zena Pierre, welcome.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Dr. Pierre is president and CEO of Washington Linkage Group. She's also the author. A book is titled The Prayers Matter to God. And also former state representative Herman Taylor is joined the group as well. Mr. Taylor, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome. Well, let's start with the newbies. Let's start with Dr. Pierre. Dr. Pierre, anything interesting pop out to you so far? The results are pouring in. Is it going as how you thought it would go?
Well, I'm keeping hope alive. Having come from 2016, working on the Hillary Clinton campaign, we've been cautiously optimistic tonight. And I will continue to say that as we patiently wait and not panic.
All right. And former state representative Herman Taylor, your thoughts? Because you know how this game is played. This is your game. So are you optimistic?
Well, Carl, it was my game. But listen, we're all sitting here obviously witnessing history, regardless of which way it goes. It's indeed an extraordinary and historic turnout with all the opportunities for people to vote. Just big love and shout out. I know, there's issues in Detroit or whatever, but to all the Black people and minorities and underserved communities that have honored history throughout these past several days to a week, and gave their vote up. I'm really just excited about what we've seen so far. We have more people involved exercising their right to vote than we've had in decades. So, this is an amazing thing to see. When I first, as you alluded to my game, Carl, when I first ran and became the first African-American to represent Montgomery County, not Pennsylvania, but Maryland, in the State House, not only did we have a lot of people that were of color going out and voting, we didn't have a lot of people, obviously, in policy-making positions. So, we're seeing some progress, but still quite a bit of ways to go. And again, I'll just close by saying, even with all the good news of the voting we're seeing, a lot of people, as you know, we all have apprehension about what the future will look like, regardless of the outcome of this race tonight.
All right, from Maryland, and also Dr. Wimbush is based in Maryland. I got to ask you about the Senate race in Maryland with Mfume, Kwesi Mfume. Dr. Taylor?
Yeah. Carl, was that? I'm sorry. Was that?
Yeah,
me?
that's you first, and then we put it
with Mfume. Yeah, I mean, listen, this young lady. I don't think there's no chance. I haven't seen any latest results, but this is Baltimore. Baltimore has always been the political blue machine of the state of Maryland. I mean, absolutely no chance. But just the sideshow that she's done of raising, I think, like $5-6 million. Kwesi has done a good job of just kind of sort of ignoring her a little bit. I don't think he's debated her. But I mean, we know that she doesn't have a chance. She doesn't live in the district, but she's raised an incredible profile for herself. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of, I think her name is Kim Klacik or something. We'll obviously be seeing a lot more of her on the Republican side. She's going to probably be one of the AOC of sorts of the Republican Party. Because of her, the way that she's brought attention to this campaign with the plight of Baltimore, which Trump did as well. Calling it rat infested, and when he talked about our tremendous leader, Cummings, that is going on now. But so yeah, I mean, it's just incredible to see somebody that doesn't have a chance of winning. I mean, this is what our politics are today, right? I don't think we've ever seen this in the world. Okay, somebody get $5 or $6 million and in a Democratic stronghold. It's just unreal.
Yeah. Dr. Wimbush, your thoughts?
About Kim Klacik?
Yeah.
You really don't want to hear.
Actually, Dr. Wimbush, because I understand some of the Black folks are not really enthused about Kwesi Mfume either.
Well, I think she shot herself in the foot. I mean, first of all of her campaign ads, which some went national, because as Brother Taylor said, that she's like going to be the AOC of the Republican Party. She doesn't have a chance. She's a super slave. I mean, that's what I call people like that in a book. She's a super slave. She had a lot of money, a lot of power, in quotation marks, derived from her masters, and she wasn't able to use it. She was on TV this morning when I was looking at the morning news, and and I don't want to sound sexist about this, but she was wearing 4-inch spike heels, a tight dress, and addressing Black men who were standing in line to vote, cajoling them, saying it's okay to vote Republican. Her husband, of course, owns a series of strip joints in this area. He's a white guy, and I don't care if people know that he is. And I could say some more things that I know, but I'm not going to do that on national radio.
All right. And we thank you, Dr. Wimbush.
Dr. Wingbush knew a lot more than me about this race.
That's my job in
a little bit about the race. Wow.
Yeah.
Dr. Pierre, we saw some of our young rappers, hip hop artists, embracing Donald Trump. Males. Didn't see any females. What's wrong with that equation? Why are the sisters feeling Donald Trump like the brothers?
You said, why are the sisters feeling Donald Trump?
Not feeling Donald Trump like
well, plenty of reasons why we're not feeling Donald Trump. I mean, let's just start with the fact that crotch grabbing. We are the ones that have to deal with carrying the weight oftentimes of being caregivers to parents who may end up facing not being able to have good health insurance, quality health insurance. The mere fact that you would call Kamala a monster. I mean, all of these things that we have heard all our lives. And now we've got to hear the same stuff from the commander in chief, the one that we would expect to galvanize people together and unify us, has really divided us. And now you look at it, there's even this divide with how they're trying to separate African-American women voters and African-American men. I mean, it's a game, and we cannot allow the foolishness of all of that to get us caught up in this divide that the Republican Party is trying to establish. If you look at the numbers, African-American women, we recorded heavily, over the last, since 16, 18, we brought home the bacon in midterm in 2016. But if you notice, the shift has taken place when all of these rappers came into play. All of a sudden it was like, let's go after the Black men. First you were super predators, you were this, you were that. And now it's like, you're the capital to this win. And so it's shameful that the people who are marginalized, that created some of these rappers and opened the doors for them to be multimillionaires, are the ones that's going to be left out here hanging, so that everybody, the ones who want to make the money or who are making the money will have that good cushion of a tax bracket. Right. So.
Yeah, well, Jay, your thoughts on that too. Are these rappers influential?
I have to agree with Dr. Pierre because they may be influential, but I think the public, the community by large, are seeing through that, and I think they understand that. Number one, it's hard for me to sympathize with rappers who can be so have no feeling what this pandemic is doing to the African American community. They have no feelings about what is happening, and that they're only concerned about themselves, that they don't see that this is hurting, is tearing the African community down. Plus the fact that Black businesses are hurting even more so because of the pandemic. There's no stimulus in sight to help these businesses maintain, not to flourish, just to maintain. And when you have these white guys who pulling six figures on American taxpayers' back, who's saying they don't even deserve $2,000, they only deserve $1,600. We're going to give them only $200. And for these so-called celebrity entertainers, I'm through with that. I'm through with them. And there's nothing they can tell me after what I'm seeing what they do to these are like this is modern day sellouts.
Yeah,
really.
Wow. Dr. Wimbush, I'll get to your comment in a second. Just handed a note here. The latest race for the votes for 270, Biden has 98 and Donald Trump 102. Okay. Eddie's got a question for, I guess, I'll send this to Dr. Wimbush. Eddie wants to know, does any one of you have any details of 45's platinum plan? So Dr. Wimbush, I'll let you have that.
Well, the platinum plan.
Dr. Wimbush, Jamie Harrison has just conceded in South Carolina.
Yeah, I figured that. I figured that was going to happen.
Didn't want to hear that one, but go ahead.
Well, you know, the Platinum Plan, which you can find online, is only a couple of pages long. You know, I think is, you know, Dr. Zena said that what we have was black men only voted 51% during the 2016 election. Donald Trump felt that if he could cull maybe 5% of that. So where would you go? The most visible black male figures in our community are sports figures and entertainers. So he went after them. Ice Cube was a little disingenuous about that. The fact of the matter is that Simone Sanders, the head of Biden's campaign, approached Ice Cube way back in May and wanted to hear his plan. And after he got kind of dragged on Black Twitter, he's, you know, he kind of pointed the finger at the Democrats as being, you know, they wouldn't listen to me. So I went over to listen to the Platinum Plan and offer my plan to the president. The fact of the matter is, and I know this sounds rather simplistic, but why would you believe Donald Trump about anything?
Right.
I mean, he lies about everything. He's a pathological liar. So why would you suddenly believe that he has the interest of Black America at heart when he denigrates Black women? And now he has taken several Black celebrities, 50 Cent, Ice Cube, Little Wayne, who has never been in our community in the first place. And he's got Black men and Black women fighting with each other about their, you know, lack of commitment to the Black community, Black men. So I think that, you know, if somebody came up to me and said, look, I want you, Winbush, to write a book about hip hop, I'm going to go to Ice Cube. Why couldn't Ice Cube, if he wanted to deal with politics, go to a politician that really knew something and had the interest of the Black community? You know, just because you're a celebrity doesn't mean that you're expert on everything.
Right. I just got a note here. Biden is projected to take Illinois. So there's another one for Joe Biden. But former state representative Herman Taylor, now you're in business. You know, your thoughts on that when these politicians want to deal with us as a people, instead of getting people like yourself who are in business, or economists. We have some brilliant economists. We've got brilliant lawyers. We've got the whole strata. But they always go to these entertainers and athletes. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, you know, the entertainers, you know, the aspect of that is interesting. I mean, you know, I've heard that on your show, what other panel speak on, you know, yes, their influence and how much money they make, but let's keep in mind, I mean, they could be very similar to athletes, meaning, you know, there may be issues managing the money, managing the business. And so I just think, you know, you have those inherent issues that they're trying to cover themselves. I don't think, because we see these people on TV, and that's the thing, that a regular business, the ones that I deal with, the minority companies, they don't have that platform, right? They don't have that access where even if they're not managing their money right, they're still going to be able to quickly get on some platform. You see, and I think that's what keeps some stability with the celebrity business owners versus the traditional minority small business owners. But I believe they have the same struggle. So I say that because we don't know exactly what the predicament is and why they have to do what they do. Because I think they're trying to make it. I don't think there is, you know, my point is, I just don't think they are as rich as we think. You know, there's a few of them that we know about, Dr. Dre and a few others. And of course, Beyonce's husband or whatever, Jay-Z. Of course, you know, a lot of people have made a lot of money that are in that category. But let's think about it. You know, again, just in Hollywood in general, there's no middle class, right? You either make it high or you're at the bottom trying to struggle. So I think there's vulnerability, to sort of answer your question there.
Yeah, and Dr. Pierre, is there a comeback for those, because Congressman Waters says anybody supporting Donald Trump, we just exiled them, I guess, from the community, just revoke the black card. These entertainers and rappers, can they come back after this?
Well, we African Americans, we are resilient and we're big forgivers. But I got to say that where we are today, I don't think it's going to be the same sort of opening arms like it used to be. I just don't. There's been too much divide. I remember Reverend Dr. Willie Barrow used to always say that we are not as divided as we are disconnected. I can't even explain if we were disconnected, divided, this is just mind-blowing to me that people see kids in cages and that same community of people down in Florida still voted for him. I don't understand that. You might be a rapper that's, a multimillionaire, but you weren't always there. So there's some memory that you've got to have of seeing the struggle and knowing what it's like to have gone through what you had to endure, what your family had to endure prior to you getting to that place. And there's no thought to look back on those circumstances and say, hey, maybe I'm a little off on, or being caught up in this scenario right now of connecting to something that really might be good for me, but it doesn't trickle down to the folks that support me. So I'm rarely lost for words, but this space right here, I think Maxine might be on to something because, some of them come to the Hill and some of them ask, for other opportunities of things and access. And it'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds because, if some way, somehow we get a blue House and a blue Senate, Aunt Maxine's going to be on point.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning Reverend Willie Barrow. I knew her as well. She at Chicago worked with Jesse Jackson, right? Yes. Jay, the same question. Is there a path back for them, win or lose tomorrow? Do you think people are going to say, forget it, man. The song's good. I'm popping my head to it. Oh, it's the Trump fan. Who cares? But the groove is hot, so I'm into it. Are they still coming to the cookout?
Like Gil Scott Heron said in B-Movie, I suppose we all actors in this, I suppose, but I don't see there's forgiveness for that because the young people in particular, the millennials who Trump called all kinds of names, who degraded these young people for standing up, which we want them to do. We should be appreciative that our young folks finally took issues, their economic justice, and these rappers are going against all of that they are standing for. So I think they see through it. I don't think there is going to be any redemption for that. I think it's a heavy price that these celebrity rappers are going to have to pay, and actors are going to have to pay for that.
Yeah, I want to switch over to former State Representative Herman Taylor, because Herman, one of the things that Trump has used, he used it real well in South Florida with the Cubans and the Venezuelans, is the socialist tag. And he's usually around the country too with AOC and some other folks calling them, say they're socialists. And people are really scared about that word. It's socialism, so it's Marxist, and they don't understand what it means. Well, they think it's something, it's real bad. And if Joe Biden's a socialist, they don't want that. How do the Democrats erase that? How do they, can they educate the people what socialism is, or is that a waste of time?
Well, listen, it's a new day on many levels right in this country, right? There's a new, the progressive movement is a new political power, and they are going, if Biden wins, they are going to demand a seat at the table. They feel that they've earned their stripes and they have, done what's needed. They've had a major voice in the process. Biden had to kowtow to them to continue on his journey to get where he is now. There were deals made. I think we've all heard they want, stream cabinet level, positions. And so I think, you're going to see a lot of that. So I think it's here to stay. I think the party is really going to have somewhat of a self-identity crisis to figure out, who the Democratic Party is and who they want to be, because I think there's a big split, and I don't think the progressive movement really speaks for Black America. I mean, there's a problem with this. I mean, that agenda has nothing to do with empowerment. Bernie Sanders, when it came to early on in the campaign, when they asked him for reparations, he said, well, we'll give them education and healthcare. So he's got an outdated message. He hasn't put a lot of thought. Then he changed his message up a bit as the campaign progressed, early on in the Democratic primary, and said, well, he'll adopt Clyburn's plan, to study it or something, and then said other ridiculous things like a check won't solve the issues of African Americans, writing the check. So I'm just saying he is the leader of that movement, and and there was a reason why Black people just absolutely did not support this man.
Yeah, we come up on a break here soon, but I got to ask Dr. Wimbush this question, because during the Obama administration, Black folks pointed out that the gay community oppressed Obama and got what they wanted. And there was a question, why can't we do it? He was talking about, Herman was talking about the progressive ring. What about the Black caucus? If they failed us, could they have done better? Could we have gotten more? Should they have asked for more? Could we have helped them? What happened there? Why can the gays get what they want? We can't get what we want.
Because the CBC has let us down a lot. It's something, that may be an in-house discussion, but it's an important one for us to have. We have to hold our elected officials' feet to the fire. We don't do that a lot of times. I said earlier, I think in the other segment, that a lot of Black folk feel that voting is the end of the political process, and it should be the beginning of the political process.
Amen.
I've asked people, who's your representative? And I'm talking about large Black audiences. A lot of us don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. Are you engaged in local politics? Like old Tip O'Neill used to say, all politics is local. Yeah. And it's true. And I think that what we've got to do is, after this election, regardless of where it goes, we have to say, we put you in office. And I'm talking about the local, state, and national level. We put you in office and we expect you to do this. And you form groups, PACs like the gays and lesbians did. Do all of that. And then you'll get, you'll win out. And ultimately, we got to talk about forming a Black political party, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Jay, your thoughts on a Black political party?
Well, we have to first understand.
That's right. Hang on a second, Jay. I'll let you finish that on the other side. And Dr. Wimbush, we thank you. And Dr. Pierre, thank you as well. We got to take a short break right here. Election Night 2020 on Radio 1. I'm Carl Nelson. We'll be back after this short break.
Thank you.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
In this one small world we share together.
There are lots of good things we can still share.
We can share hope.
We can share laughter. We can share encouragement. We can share inspiration.
We can share unity.
We can share healing.
We can share joy.
We can share love.
We can share truth.
So during these times, we can't forget.
We can beat this together.
Because together,
we are one.
This is reality radio. The reality is that for far too long, there have been efforts to refocus the now $1.3 trillion annual spending power of the Black consumer market. Over the past several decades, there have been numerous Buy Black campaigns, but still, only about 3% of that $1.3 trillion circulates back to the Black community. So, let's try it again. Each week, we will identify 3 Black-owned businesses on Tuesday and spend money with them for the week. And then on the next Tuesday, we will identify 3 more in our local communities. The businesses for this week are
Excellent carpet cleaning, health, appearance, and preservation is the standard, making a difference one client at a time. Visit excellentcarpetcleaning.net. Bishop and Bishop Dental, your family-friendly dental practice delivering the best in general and cosmetic dentistry. Conveniently located in downtown Silver Spring. Visit bishopdental.com. Dina's Delights is a plant-based dessert company that makes delicious desserts with healthier ingredients, peanut and dairy-free, no white sugar and high fructose with great taste. Visit dinasdelights.com.
This is Reality Radio with Kathy Hughes. What's your reality?
Urban One celebrates the legacy of Helen Jones Woods, a pioneering jazz trombonist with the historic integrated all-female jazz band, the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, during the 1940s. Woods' dedication to helping minority students at the Pineywood School will continue with your support. To donate, log on to give.pineywoods.org. That's give.pineywoods.org. give.pineywoods.org.
WOL, Washington, D.C., an Urban One radio station, minority controlled and operated, serving the African American community for over 40 years, and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com.
The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio One Incorporated, or their management.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL. Brought to you by the Mind of an Entrepreneur show, where Wendy Muhammad gives you mental strategies for navigating the world of business and building a Black economy. And 1450 WOL.
All right, thank you. We're back on Election Night 2020. We see we've got some new faces here. But first, let's wrap up with Jay before we let Jay go. So, Jay, your response to the question I posed to you right before we left.
Well, my deepest concern is that we vote, but we don't really hold those that we put in power. We don't hold them accountable. And we don't have an agenda that we place before them to say, if you want my vote, and once I give you my vote, what will happen afterwards? How are we going to implement the changes that I need for me or for my community or for my family? We have to be more. We have to be more. I think we have to demand more for our vote. Just like we should be more selective about where we purchase stuff, how we spend our dollar. We need to be more demanding. And with the Democrats who could take over both houses, our main objective to them is how do we get rid of voter suppression, particularly in the African American community. That has got to be upmost besides the pandemic.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Thank
you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. All right, we've got a new guest. We've got Delegate Daryl Barnes has joined us, and we still have Herman Taylor with us. And we just got a report here that California, Oregon, Washington, and all the West Coast are going for Joe Biden, but that was expected.
Sure.
Daryl Barnes, any surprises so far tonight?
Well, I think as we look at the results that are coming in, I'm still on the edge over in Florida. I'm still anxiously waiting to see what happens in Pennsylvania. We're still waiting to see the results in Ohio. So I think as everyone has indicated, this is going to be a long night and early morning as we still wait for some of these results to come in.
So, Herman, any surprises to you yet?
No, I knew we'd be in Carl for a long night, and it's been topsy-turvy. So when I was watching the results earlier, it's you grabbing your stomach. It's so I guess we'll just maybe be in a holding pattern. I I don't know. I think that's the thing. It's just a big unknown, and I was just hoping it wouldn't. I haven't gotten any current updates, but I just hope it wouldn't have been too tight where this will now be, days or weeks from now decided, have an opportunity to be decided with lawyers in the courts and, and not by the American people, which could bring on more, more lower voter turnout in our future elections when people feel that their vote didn't really matter if it's handled in a different way. So,
well, just got some more results coming in. Biden has 192 electoral votes, and Trump has 114. So I heard what you're saying about knots in your stomach, and the people have been stressed out about this. People just want to exhale tomorrow. I'm just wondering, Darryl, will they be able to exhale? How do you see it so far?
No, and I don't think people will be able to exhale. I think, listen, we are still in some troubling times. Regardless of who wins, I think it's going to be a while before we start to settle down and get into a groove, if you will. Systemic racism is very prevalent in this country. I've always said racism is just as prevalent as it was since 1950. So there's a lot of work that has to be done to heal this nation. And I think Joe Biden said it best, where he said he's running and fighting for the soul of the nation. And if you look at what's going on right now around the country, there is so much unevenness that we must come together as a nation. All eyes are on us from around the world to see what the outcome of this election will be and what is the will of the people of America. Are we going to re-elect someone that has been divisive, racist, spewing hatred, or are we going to get back to American values? So I think there's a lot at stake in this election.
Yeah, interesting you say that, Darryl. A friend of mine in Germany says wherever he goes and people figure out he's an American, they say, the question they ask him, how did you guys elect Donald Trump? Yeah. He says, he keeps getting that. How did you guys elect Donald Trump? Is that the best you got? And what happens if he gets reelected? I mean, he said, man, I'm embarrassed about Donald Trump. That's the question. Go to restaurants and go, as soon as they hear my accent, oh, are you American? So how did you elect Donald? That's all they want to talk about. And he's concerned now if Donald Trump gets reelected, it's going to ratchet up that conversation. How did Americans elect Donald Trump? Is that the best representative we can find in this entire country?
Is that for me, Carl?
Yeah, that's for you, Herman.
I'm sorry, man. I keep doing that. You were breaking up too a little bit with the feed. I apologize. Listen, I think one thing we're going to have to do is, I know there's an easy tendency, and he's an easy target, the president. And again, it's an easy tendency to just blame him for everything. And to some degree, we should. He's earned it. But I believe in 2016, when I was, working and giving and raising my money for Hillary Clinton, there were some issues. There were some, I remember one year when this is a long time, this is like 15 years ago or something. I was in Georgetown at a restaurant and Bill, it just happened to be celebrity night there. I was just there, just eating a meal. But, I think Bob Johnson was there, Bill Clinton, of course, and his wife Hillary. And there was the table I was at was full of lobbyists and, a bunch of politicos. And Bill knew a lot of them. And he stopped and talked to people at the table. This is, he wasn't president. I forget, what was going on then. This may have been in the early 2000s. I don't know. Hillary Clinton walked straight to their limo. I mean, she didn't stop. She just, so I say that to say that there has to be some responsibility when you're asked that question of how and why. I mean, our there's a breakdown in our system that emerged out of it this man. And we still, I think you all were talking about Michigan or Detroit earlier, not turning out the vote. I mean, there's still even though we're getting such a big turnout, there's still a range of people that feel that just didn't have a real motivation to still get out. It's amazing. There's still people I spoke with that just didn't see an opportunity for them because there's two old white men to vote for.
Yeah, that's the choices. And
so.
Yeah, I was going to mention Daryl's the chair of the Maryland Black Legislative Caucus. So, Daryl, the elected officials, are they concerned about the voter apathy that we've seen has been displayed every now and then, especially tonight? We're hearing that a lot of blacks didn't show up. We don't know if that's true or they voted early. But is that a concern?
That's always a concern. Listen, I think, both sides have preyed on the black vote. We know that the black vote has a tendency to carry the election. But I think we take our vote for granted more than our white counterparts. We do not understand the full value and the strength and power of our vote. And that's why we get what we get oftentimes. Oftentimes we don't take advantage of those things as it relates to our own communities. And I think it's important that we understand the magnitude of what we have and the value that we have and the power that we hold in our hands in order to effectively make the change in which we call for. Oftentimes we fight and advocate for certain things, but truly do not understand what we're doing. The power that we truly have is affecting change by hitting folks economically, which makes them want to then sit up to listen to what we have to say. Our buying power, our spending power, all of those things we take for granted, and we spend freely in other parts of our community, except for within our own.
That's interesting you say that. Herman, that's a good segue for Herman to answer that question because he's been on both sides, a big person and a politician. Herman, I'll let you respond. Go ahead.
Again, I think that there is a I don't agree, Carl, with people not participating, especially when with our history and what it took to get where we are. But we have to start looking at the other equation of as to the real issues and talking about the things that the issues that aren't reaching certain segments of our society. I mean, there's so many people still hurting now for decades. There's so many people that I'm a Democrat. I'll always be a Democrat. I ran as a Democrat, served DNC, but I see that sometimes there's an agenda missing of the Black community for more opportunities of empowerment. We've seen the private sector run rampant now. The wealth gap has widened tremendously. And that's because the little policy making that we've been able to do has been trying to control the government's distribution of inequality as opposed to trying to do more than the private sector. So now the private sector, in terms of including us, I mean, think about it. As Black people, I mean, we've been like flatlined, like in inorganic matter when it comes to economic development and commerce. And that mostly has been from the distribution of the government. So we haven't had a chance to get in the private sector and figure out how do we create more opportunities and how do we regulate there, because we're still 50 years in the making trying to beat and fight the government, regardless of who is in power, whose party it is, for them to discontinue their inertia of inequality.
You know what? Daryl mentioned they're using our economic clout. As you've been, like I mentioned, you've been on both sides. You've been a politician, now you're business. Is that an effective tool?
Carl, your feed or my feed, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Again,
I repeat it. Darryl mentioned using our economic clout for change. And I mentioned because you've been an elected official and now you're in business, is that an effective tool? Will that get their attention?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we do. We're known. The Black community is known as a major consumer. I mean, we saw through the uprising over the summer, guilt-ridden corporations curtailed themselves to what was going on culturally and did cosmetic improvements. Not anything really deep. They put their PR machines on. They gave money that was easy for them to give because they wanted to cover the front end of their business. That's what that was about. They never bought into the movement or really the essence of what it was about. It was just to cover themselves. So, I mean, I think it's known we have an economic power. We've gotten more people in the movement understanding that inequality really does matter, that it's a real issue that's on the table and it has gone unaddressed so for some time. So I mean, we know we have that, but the issue is, how do we do it? Our Black businesses are now failing. We failing, big time, epic. We don't know. This will be a huge setback. It's a huge setback for small businesses. And I was disappointed, and I appreciate some of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus, not my brother here, the state Black Caucus, and I'm not doing this to patronize him because he's on the same screen with me, but Daryl Barnes does his job as the leader in Maryland of the Black Caucus. He has an economic agenda for Black people. But when you look at congressional, I mean, when they rolled out the PPP program, Carl, I mean, I was disappointed because, they had hearings on it after the fact. And, the members that are sitting on certain committees from the Congressional Black Caucus about, wow, there was a big mistake. It was almost like a Section 8 program for white businesses or white people, the PPP. It did not include us. And so you have members of the Congressional Black Caucus that have been serving in Congress for decades, and you would have thought knew the game, knew how this bill was going to roll out. But there was still a bunch of unknowns, right? The first round of PPP went terrible. People got money. It seems like the richer you were, the more money you got. Okay, and Black business was excluded because we didn't have relationships with the bank because the way the game was played. So I don't know how we're going to do the economic empowerment when we're electing people in positions of power. We have no agenda. There's no coordination, and we don't get the deliverables that we should get. We have Black people elected all over this country in every level, every and all levels of government, especially in communities where we are.
Yeah, and Darryl, I want you to comment what Herman said too, and all this is compounded by the coronavirus, COVID-19, because as you mentioned, a lot of businesses, especially Black businesses, they're not going to make it. That's the sad reality. They're not going to make it. Is there anything that local lawmakers like yourself, your group, can do to help them?
Yeah, I think here in the state of Maryland, we are being proactive versus reactive, meaning that we are taking a broad view of what's going on because of COVID-19 and this pandemic. We know that Blacks are disproportionately have been affected because of their zip codes, because of their health care that they're able to receive. We know that small businesses, going back to what Herman Taylor just spoke about, and the Paycheck Protection Program, that we were denied the opportunity to receive a lot of those dollars because of the relationships that we have with our banking institutions. We know that our education system is subpar to our white counterparts. We know that here in the state of Maryland, we have 4 HBCUs that are underfunded. We know that our transportation and roads and bridges need more infrastructure and repair. We know that the climate change here in America is real. So I think there's a lot of things in which we need to wrap our arms around, but I believe that Maryland is leading the way in a lot of those things. And I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. You talk about police accountability. The state of Maryland, led by our Speaker, the House, the first black as well as black woman, is now the Speaker of the House, is leading the way, who has said that she wants a more Afrocentric agenda for our upcoming 2021 legislative session, meaning we want to start talking about equity and inclusion when we start talking about African Americans. I'm not talking about minority participation. I'm talking about black folks.
Right.
So when we start talking about how do we equate them in the conversation centered around equity and inclusion, I think there's a lot to be had.
Well, hold on right there. Did she get any pushback?
You're always going to get pushback. But listen, we are the largest black caucus or
Good question, girl.
in the union, right? We have 58 members of Black Caucus members in Annapolis. It takes 71 votes to get a bill passed. We control the narrative, right? So when you start talking about these important things, like what happened around the country on this civil unrest or police accountability, I think Maryland is leading the way in ensuring that we repeal the Maryland Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, that we start talking about a statewide use of force, when we start talking about the Maryland Public Information Act that needs to be more nationwide or reformed. So I think there's a lot of things in which we're leading the way. You talk about a multi-million-dollar industry that came into the state of Maryland and medical cannabis.
That's right.
That did not have any white, that had all white growers and processors, but it was because of the Maryland Black Caucus in the state of Maryland through the second round, where we have more blacks in ownership and growers and processors than anywhere in the state, around the country. You talk about a bill that's coming before us in sports betting that I've said that will not happen until we talk about black ownership for another multi-million-dollar opportunity that's coming before the state of Maryland. So Maryland is leading the way in making a lot of these things happen. You look at our 4 HBCUs and the transformation that they're doing in the education for our young people in Morgan State and Bowie State and Coppin State and Maryland Eastern Shore. It's the state of Maryland that's leading the way, and because of our legislators that are more forward thinking and creative and making sure that we're making change in a positive way. This is what this election is all about, is who is going to come together, either Joe Biden or Donald Trump, and listen to the needs of African Americans. And I truly believe from my conversations with Roland Martin, who said you can always fight for education and transportation and criminal justice reform, but until you start hitting big business in the budget with economics and the dollars, then no one's going to sit up and listen to you. So we're starting to now take heed to that and making sure that these multi-billion-dollar companies that are in the state of Maryland understand that they must put our needs first before they come before us and ask for tax credits and incentives. So we have to be well-rounded in our ideology and making sure that we're moving forward through our methodology.
Yeah, so let's talk about business, Herman. A lot of people said they support Donald Trump because he's a businessman. They identify with him. The country needs a businessman, not a politician. You're a businessman. Do we need Donald Trump? Who'd be better for black businesses in your estimation? Would it be Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
Well, listen, Donald Trump is that you set me up, Carl, but Donald Trump is listen, there's a program and he had black people in charge of it. I forgot what it's called, but I had a bill that was very similar when I served in the legislature that created a tax incentive to get new infusions of capital into underserved communities. I forgot what his bill is called, but the senator from the black senator from South Carolina sponsored it.
Tim Scott.
Yes. That's correct, Carl. And and allowed Donald Trump to to trumpet it and to kind of take ownership after it passed. And that's questionable whether that program is that wealth building program is effective or not. But I think it is a good idea to attract capital into historically underserved communities by giving wealthy people tax breaks and tax incentives to bring investment there. So you see certain programs like that. Of course, people could say, I wouldn't say it publicly, but people could say that understand the economics of and the finance aspect of that bill. A lot of people don't understand it. Because like I said, when I was in office, I created legislation, didn't go anywhere. People hated it. They thought it would be bad for Maryland, but it was to do similar with the platform we're on now. Radio One, I believe, really got sort of where they are today, where they were able to buy majority-owned radio stations because there was an incentive or something by the FCC or something.
Right.
So I created yes, that's correct, Carl. And so I created something similar, saying because they buy up, white America, when there is a good black business, they're bought up. BET, okay, BET, okay. I mean, imagine how valuable BET is right now. Bob Johnson is no longer on the Forbes list. Now they say several reasons. One is, well, he had it was the divorce, but he's no longer on the billionaire list. And that commodity, 30, 40 years later, that platform of black entertainment television is just as valuable today than it was in its heyday. And it's not black owned anymore.
Yeah.
So I created a bill to say, look, let us buy their companies. Okay, and give them a tax, give them a decrease off the capital gains, so we can have an incentive similar to the way I believe. I'm not sure, I'm on the infamous WOL and don't want to proclaim I know how Radio One was established here. I mean, I'm on the trademark station here of how it all started. But I believe that was a help to expand the business. So what we need is again, more empowerment opportunities to build wealth. And we need an agenda for that. And even with this uprising, right, there's no agenda. Robert Smith came out with a decent program, like I mentioned earlier, that we haven't done much in the private sector. So with the civil unrest, our new billionaire, who's now having his own issues, and I hope he recovers from this. But it's, he's been beaten up a lot lately, and there's still a drumbeat of him being beaten up over this tax thing that's really hard to understand, kind of very convoluted. But he started with it. He was the only one I saw out there that put a program, an agenda together for economic development for underserved and minority communities.
Right. And Daryl, you mentioned the HBCUs in Maryland. Do they need to change their curriculum or more tailor the studies? Because the world is changing now. We're in the information age. And let's be frank, the history and psychology majors and art majors, they're going to have a hard time getting a job when they graduate. Do they need to curtail or redefine the education curriculum so it fits the needs of today's society?
Well, I think they are doing that. Here in the state of Maryland, Bowie State has just created the School of Entrepreneurship. We know that we are trying to target more of our young people to go into ownership. So Bowie State has created that. They're also looking at creating a law school or law department over at Bowie State. Morgan State has created or is in the works of talking about creating a Morgan State hospital. So now another study for that. We know that Maryland Eastern Shore is leading the way in agriculture and have one of the best golf programs in the country. So I think our 4 HBCUs here in the state of Maryland are definitely moving in the right direction. I think the problem has been a duplication of services from our traditional white institutions, i.e. Maryland University. And I think part of the problem is our kids are just as equipped or just as knowledgeable as any child that goes to Maryland University or any other traditional white school. The problem is the lack of funding to make us more competitive or at least put us at the same playing field as anyone else, right? So if you put a child that goes to one of our HBCUs and one that goes to a traditionally white university, I guarantee you they will be able to stand toe to toe. But what attracts one to want to go to one school or the other is the facilities, right? If I'm a basketball player, why would I want to go to a HBCU that does not have the same kind of locker room and equipment as a traditionally white university? It's the funding that they receive. That's why I am so encouraged and excited when I see some of these top athletes now saying that they want to go to a HBCU and skip past these traditionally white institutions.
Right. As the top basketball player.
It's going to Howard University.
Yeah, out of San Diego. Yeah, it's true. And we saw the prime time. Yeah, Dion.
It's going down to Jackson State.
Right. And we may be on the cusp of a trend here where, we keep our homegrown stars in the schools, and that would be a good thing. And what people don't understand, the ripple effect, it's not just that Dion just goes there to Jackson State, or this brother going to Howard, but it's the ripple effect. It's the TV. It's all the other stuff that comes with it.
Absolutely. And I think we have an opportunity to play on that. Yeah. I commend the young women that created the Black Lives Matter. Because we are now having the wind beneath.
Hang on a second, Jared. We got to take a short break here. I'll let you finish your thought on the other side. But some more folks are going to join us right here, Election Night 2020 on Radio 1's 1450 WRL.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL. Information is power. Listen all weekend long on 1450 WOL and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com with Law Talk with Ethel Mitchell, Keeping Up with the Joneses, The Outlet with K-Touch, Dr. Quarter, Moonman and the Fun Bunch. Download our mobile app and take us everywhere you are. Proudly serving the African American community. News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
This is reality radio. The reality is that for far too long, there have been efforts to refocus the now $1.3 trillion annual spending power of the Black consumer market. Over the past several decades, there have been numerous Buy Black campaigns, but still, only about 3% of that $1.3 trillion circulates back to the Black community. So, let's try it again. Each week, we will identify 3 Black-owned businesses on Tuesday and spend money with them for the week. And then on the next Tuesday, we will identify 3 more in our local communities. The businesses for this week are
Excellent Carpet Cleaning, Health, Appearance, and Preservation is the standard, making a difference one client at a time. Visit excellentcarpetcleaning.net. Bishop & Bishop Dental, your family-friendly dental practice delivering the best in general and cosmetic dentistry. Conveniently located in downtown Silver Spring. Visit bishopdental.com. Dina's Delights is a plant-based dessert company that makes delicious desserts with healthier ingredients, peanut and dairy-free, no white sugar and high fructose with great taste. Visit dinasdelights.com.
This is Reality Radio with Kathy Hughes. What's your reality?
DC, we are one, still striving, still standing. The DC Lottery stands with you as we celebrate Radio 1 for 40 years of informing, inspiring, and entertaining the community. We honor this rich legacy with a commemorative 40th anniversary scratcher. Remember, when you play, we all win as proceeds from DC Lottery games support essential city services, including healthcare, education, and public safety. The tempo may have changed, but the winning continues. Keep it safe and play by the rules. Lots of people win. This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thanks for staying with us, folks. It's Election Night 2020, as the man said, and attorney I think Attorney A. Scott Bolden is going to join us as well pretty soon here. But Daryl, I'm going to let you finish your thought.
No, I was saying that I'm so proud of the young ladies that created the Black Lives Matter, because I believe that movement has effectively created a point at which we are now having courageous conversations, and we can be unapologetic in our Blackness and asking for things that are truly affecting our communities. So I think we're moving finally in a direction that we can see change. I think we're moving in a direction in which if we can come together collaboratively and work together, I think all the things that we want and hope to create that generational wealth, I think we're moving in that direction to make things happen.
All right. Latest tally, we have Biden 197, and also we have Trump 114. The question from Eddie Carl, will you ask Delegate Barnes or Representative Taylor to explain how the opportunity zones, one of the plans that 45 gave big push after the 2016 election, have benefited Black communities? Gentlemen, anybody want to tackle that?
I'll let Herman speak. I'll follow up.
Well, listen, like I alluded to that before, the people don't really understand the program as much, and it would have been helpful. But if for instance, like the state of Maryland, if they had got involved somehow and made sure that those opportunities or opportunity zones trickled down locally. So there wasn't as much activity that I'm aware of in this area or any deals that I saw, but no one can refute that capital is needed in underserved communities. And I hate to throw Daryl. I don't think I'm throwing him under the bus, but in Prince George's County, I don't think opportunity zones would have addressed this, but they've just now given their school, going to build 4 or 5 new schools.
6.
That the government's not doing. Private sector, some big non-minority company, I'm sure, majority company is now going to own the new schools that they're going to be rolling out. Why? Because even the government can't afford its own infrastructure anymore. I told one of the people involved with this program, and it's called the P3. These are new things that are going on throughout the country. These P3 programs where they're using the private sector and innovative ways of using capital to build infrastructure. And I said, they shut the Purple Line down in Maryland. That was a P3. And then I told someone the other day involved in this project, I said, look, after they build these schools, don't be surprised if the kids, after the pandemic, go to their elementary school after Labor Day and there's a padlock on the door because there's something that you didn't pay to your landlord or whatever. So the bottom line is, Carl, capital is always welcome. And that's what I am certainly not pushing anything of the Trump administration, but I'm just saying capital is always needed and required.
All right. Attorney A.
Answer your caller's question.
Right. Attorney A. Scott Bolden is joining us. Attorney, any surprises tonight for you?
Hey, thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Yeah. No real surprises yet. I mean, Trump is winning the red states like he's supposed to. It's interesting, if there is a surprise, it's how well Biden is running in those red states. But he's winning the blue states the way he should. In the end, we're going to flip Arizona. Virginia, I've told my Democratic colleagues to sit tight because the Democratic strongholds in Virginia have not been counted yet. I don't know why they haven't. I also don't know why Pennsylvania is taking so long to count mail-in ballots, but they just started today. There may be up to 1 million that they're going to try to get through between now and tomorrow, which is very disappointing. So no real surprises there. We got to keep the faith. We got to get to 270, and we got a lot of different pathways to get there, unlike the president.
All right. Mark from Anaheim is joining us, a researcher. Mark, welcome to Election Night 2020.
thank you for having me, Mr. Nelson. And first and foremost, thank you to Kathy Hughes and WOL for even providing this format for the Black community.
Same question for you that I asked Counselor. Any surprises so far?
No surprises, but I'm on the West Coast, and I guess I have a different system because you're behind. Biden's at 209 and Trump is at 118.
Okay,
Yeah.
the update.
Well, that's even better.
But like I will always tell the listeners, you know, it ain't over till it's over. And these are still projections right now because there's so many uncounted votes. So I'm not surprised. I was hoping that Harris would have done a little bit better against Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. And I most definitely was hoping that McGrath would have done better against Mitch McConnell in Kentucky, but, you know, it is what it is. In the meanwhile, you know, of course, there was one significant defeat of a Republican in the Senate race, so the Democrats can claim victory there. I think for the Democratic Party as a whole, and I'm neither a Democrat or a Republican, but I think for the Democrats as a whole, it was a disappointment in Maine because a lot of people thought they were definitely going to take out the senator in Maine who appeared to do very well in that state. So overall, I haven't seen any major surprises. I've been watching Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona. And I think if Arizona and Nevada turn for Joe Biden, we're going to see some interesting changes here. And it's not over yet for Texas. You know, right now they're saying that Trump is leading in Texas. But like I said, it ain't over till it's over. So Florida and Texas are not guaranteed for Trump.
Do you think we'll find a winner tonight, or we'll be going in the next few days?
Absolutely not tonight. I would say at the earliest Friday. And I hope that people keep a calm head because a lot of people in this country now, because of the information age, have been spoiled into getting instantaneous information. And a lot of news outlets out there and political outlets have been putting out some of the most ridiculous propaganda, giving false hopes to a lot of people. So I hope folks can keep a level head. I was in Beverly Hills yesterday, Santa Monica, Hollywood, in the more affluent neighborhoods. And I took photographs, hundreds of photographs of some of the most elite and wealthiest stores that are all boarded up because they're anticipating violence. And this is out here in Southern California. So I could only imagine what's happening in those states that are far more confrontational right now. So I just hope folks can keep a level head because it's crazy to think that they're going to find the results tonight. There's no way.
Councilor Bolden, I got to ask you this question. What happens if we're held in this abeyance, say for another few days, few weeks? You know, people are all, earlier we talked, I think it was Herman who talked about people being tense and stomach in knots or what's going on. Is this going to continue like this?
Yeah, we got our stomach in knots for the last 3-4 years. What are you talking about?
For the last 62 years of my life.
So legally, though, Trump's still in office, still holding on to it. Nothing changes. I mean, he can still do whatever he wants to do.
Well, for the next several days, you remember Bush v. Gore went for 3 or 4 weeks until the Supreme Court settled that issue. You've got to have votes and your votes counted and finalized and reported through your electors. I think the date is by January 8th. So we've got plenty of time to work through any legal issues. But when I say plenty of time, I'm comparing this week to January 8th. You know, my goal or my hope or prayer would be that it wouldn't be that close. It looks like it's going to be close. That says more about this country than it does about Donald Trump, as disappointing as that may be, and his enablers. But I think that the fact that we didn't have any major serious issues this election day, I think that over 100 million people voted early and mailed in. I think that the president has been quiet about not accepting certain results, even though at his rallies he was talking about cheating and attacking the very system that he wants the system to reward him. And so I would hope that we wouldn't have to go to the House of Representatives and the Senate ultimately to pick someone to be president. That would be an extreme case, and it's called for in the Constitution, but it would be not only extreme case, but a real constitutional crisis for us. So we're nowhere near that yet.
Well, hang on a second. Give us that roadmap. What does it take to get there? What has to happen?
Two ways to do that. One, the red states could argue that the votes were either counted wrong or there was some type of fraud involved, and the house, the state houses could choose electors to vote against the will of the people. So if you were in a Biden state, if Biden won a red state and the state legislature was red or Republicans, they could pass a law to they could vote to have an elector go to Congress by January 8th, and that elector would vote for Trump, even though the state voted for Biden. That could happen. Then the House would have to pick the president if they rejected those electors, if that happened, and the Senate would pick the vice president. It's only happened one time in the history of the country, and that was under President Rutherford. There was a compromise deal cut. He actually lost the popular vote. I think it was in the 1800s, 1850s, I think. Don't hold me to that. But he actually lost to a challenger who won the popular vote, but lost the Electoral College. There was a compromise negotiation by the House and Senate, and that's how you got Rutherford and his vice president.
Yeah. Herman, I got a question because Mark mentioned that the fancy part of Beverly Hills all boarded up. What does this mean for businesses?
And DC is boarded up too. It's not just in Hollywood or Beverly Hills. By the way, I was just downtown coming from another network doing an interview, and the marchers were out in front of Trump Hotel, and I believe they were Antifa. So they were not peaceful protesters. Let me just say that.
Yeah, I'll let Mark handle that in a moment. But Herman, the business is being boarded up because right now it seems like we're not going to have a result. How long can they? It's not the virus this time. How long can they? Survive being boarded up?
Well, I mean, the president started all this. I mean, we have literally an American president that incites violence, and then puts up a 50-foot gate for blocks long around the White House to protect himself. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The chaos that this American president has continued to perpetuate, which really has been his calling card from day one. And as the race tightens and days turn into more days, I think it gives him more opportunity to create his agenda, because we've known his agenda has always been chaos. He was a natural fit on that reality show. That reality show he had, it was about, on reality shows, creating, you have to just create chaos. So no one was better in that role but him. And now he's gone into our government and created this type of chaos. So, as we were talking about earlier, Carl, minority businesses. I mean, our businesses, I don't know how many of them are in Beverly Hills, and I don't know how many of our minority businesses are on right there where they painted Black Lives Matter in DC. The disappointing thing when I saw that, and I appreciate the symbol, but when I looked at the substance through that block where, there's a Ritz-Carlton or there's a hotel there. I don't think there's any minority businesses on the 2 blocks of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. I got a question for Attorney Bolden. A tweeter it says, wants to know the ramifications if this count, I think that's what they mean, goes to the courts.
Well, the Republicans have a solid 6-3 majority because of Amy Barrett. She should recuse herself, but that's up to her discretion. And it depends on what the lawsuits that will be filed, that will be appealed by either party to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court could vote before January 8th. So there will be a rush if we're going to litigate voter fraud issues or voter count issues. Then the courts will, on an emergency basis, starting in the federal court or the state courts, until it gets to the Supreme Court. And under Bush v. Gore, the decision was rendered before that January 8th deadline. And the both sides accepted that Supreme Court decision. That's why the Republicans rushed the Barrett nomination so they could have 9, not 8. Because if you had 8 and it was a 4-4 tie, then you'd have to go to those other extremes where either the state legislatures would send electors or some other way to get the House and Senate to select who would be president and who would be vice president. And by the way, if the Senate or the House couldn't figure it out, or they couldn't vote, or they couldn't figure out who they wanted to select, guess who would be named interim president under our Constitution?
Nancy?
Everybody on this phone should know that.
Pelosi.
Pelosi, the Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
They don't teach civics anymore, but I can still read.
Yeah.
Mark, I've got a question for you because Attorney Bolden mentioned that he was driving by Trump's D.C. hotel and he saw Antifa out there. How much of these skirmishes in the streets, whether it be in Washington, D.C. or Black Lives Matter Plaza or out Seattle and Portland on the West, how much of these do we know that are really generic, or could there be some agent provocateurs mixed in? And if so, why?
Well, one of the things I want to go back to, the brother was talking about, he doesn't know how many black-owned businesses on Rodeo Drive, maybe, or Beverly Hills. Well, there's a black-owned business that, is prominently known for serving waffles and chicken, but that owner is a Trump supporter. So just because it's a black-owned business doesn't mean they're representing us. So we have to be careful when we just arbitrarily throw this thing out about supporting black-owned businesses, because I do my homework to find out exactly who they're involved with and who they're supporting before I just give my money to them too. But as far as the Antifa thing goes, one of the things that I said back when the unfortunate shooting death of Michael Brown, my namesake, in Ferguson was Black Lives Matter would become enemy number one in the state and in the country. Why? Because in Ferguson, after Black Lives Matter got the people out there to register to vote, they flipped over the political figures in that county of St. Louis County. And you had a lot more blacks that got elected because black people became politically active. And if Black Lives Matter was to do that nationally, Republicans would never be able to win again. And that's why you've been seeing for the last 3 years more voter suppression than any other time in U.S. history, because Black Lives Matter, while everybody keeps associating them with demonstrations, they have gotten black folks and conscious white folks and others to register to vote and to express their disgust and disdain for what you have running the White House in this country right now. So it's really sad, because when people talk about Antifa, there is no organization Antifa. You have people who have an anti-fascist attitude. I wasn't here during that time, but during World War II, we lost a lot of U.S. citizens who fought against fascism. Donald Trump is a fascist. There's nothing else to call him but a fascist. Biden won't say that word. Harris won't say that word. I don't hear Pelosi use that word. Now, Trump doesn't have a problem calling them communists or socialists, but he's a fascist. And so what you see with Antifa, for example, there are certain members within that group that label themselves Antifa who believe that they're going to go out and resort to the same types of tactics as the Proud Boys or some of these other white militant groups. And it's unfortunate, because that's who the media, of course, highlights. And even when Antifa is not responsible, there are people who have embedded themselves into those groups that will go out for the whole purpose of creating chaos. We call them agent provocateurs. And so Mr. Nelson, I'm out there in the streets, okay? And I've been out there in the streets. I was a cop for 24 years. I know who these people are. They trust me because I've always treated them with respect. And I know a lot of the stuff, this violence that's going on out there is being done by cops and armed forces personnel that's in the 3%ers. Antifa is not your problem. It's the 3%ers. It's the oath keepers. These guys are highly trained, former and present armed forces and law enforcement. And a lot of those people out there guarding Trump Plaza right now, that's who you're dealing with.
Yeah, interesting. Daryl, Mark mentioned that Black Lives Matter started to get political and registering people to vote. Is this something that the American Black Legislative Caucus would welcome?
Listen, we're always looking for like-minded organizations that's trying to create a movement. And we know from the civil rights era, the number of people and organizations that tried to ensure that we had the right to vote and to ensure that Black folks registered and went to the polling places. By all means, as I indicated earlier, I believe that through this Black Lives Matter, the movement has been able to escalate uncomfortable conversations for some. And for others, we have been able to have very frank and unapologetic conversations. So yes, I would welcome them in Maryland on some of the things that we're working on. Absolutely.
Yeah, and Herman, a question for you, because it seems like the violence that Mark is alluding to is coming from the right. Before they used to say that it was the left and they're leftists, and it was the left. People on the left side who were responsible for the crime and the violence. Yet we see what happened in the Beltway this weekend. We saw what happened down in Texas with the Trumpsters and the truckers and the blocking people to vote. Who flipped this around?
Well, as we all know, there are people with other agendas that are out that have been throughout the past several months making it look like that it's the Black Lives Matter movement or someone else creating this violence and destruction, so they can put us in the position where they've sort of tried to put us, and where Trump's calling out for law and order, and it's not us that's really causing anyone to push agenda for law or order. So it's really sad how they have undermined or attempted to undermine our agenda for inequality and make it something of violence.
Yeah, Attorney Bolden, we still got Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin left. If Biden wins two of those, he's probably going to the White House. If you had to pick two of those states, which one do you think he'd probably get?
Arizona will flip. That's in really good shape. And take your pick on Pennsylvania or Wisconsin. Michigan just seems scary to me for some reason. They had militia trying to kidnap the governor, so I'm afraid of Michigan, even though it's always been a Democratic stronghold. But I think Pennsylvania will be the other one, or Wisconsin. I think he's been declared a winner in Minnesota. So those are my best thoughts. Hey, Carl, I got a hard stop at midnight. It's been a long day, and I'm going to...
All right, I know it's been a long day. We appreciate all that you gave us, so thank you.
No, I appreciate you. I appreciate our elected officials. Herman and I have been friends a long time. And
Good to see you, Scott.
Absolutely, brother. It's Carl, I appreciate you and WOL providing this forum. It's always good news, good trouble to be with good Black people.
And, we appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Make time for you and your program and whatever else I can do to support Black businesses.
There you go. Right? That's how we roll. Thank you
very much.
Thank you, Attorney Bolden. Thank you.
Say your prayers this week.
Right.
It can happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we got to find Marcus Garvey to take us out.
We got to pick him up. So, Mark, Arizona. Kelly just took Arizona. Is that a good sign for Biden?
It's absolutely a good sign because Arizona is full of hardcore Tea Party libertarians, but see, Arizona also has a large population of Native Americans, and nobody's talking about the Native Americans and the Latinx voting, and they're angry and they're tired of being ignored. So I think Arizona is going to flip for Joe Biden.
All right, folks, they just told me it's time to go. It's going to be a long night, probably a long few days as well. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here on Election Night 2020. Also got to thank Wendy Muhammad, our sponsor, Ron Thompson, Kevin Langford, JR, the fellas back at the studio to make this work. You don't know, you don't see them, but the ones who make it work. So we thank each and every one of you. And remind you to join us on the radio tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We're just going to open the phone lines and get your thoughts about today's election. So stay strong, stay positive, and please, please stay safe.
All right.
This is Election Night 2020 with Carl Dawson on 1450 WOL.